Chapter 6:15. There was a loud bang. Bojiu only had one thought in her mind. She deserved it. But right now, she had clearly underestimated the Almighty's scheming. Since you're so aggressive, you shouldn't still be shy, right? Qin Mo arched a brow. Bojiu. Was this the price of being caught posting on Weibo? Fortunately at this moment, Lin Feng shouted, "Captain, the middle lane." Qin Mo frowned, putting his earpiece back. His left hand gripped the mouse, and he turned invisible, gliding across the field, heading straight for the middle lane. He returned with a big move, crossing the tower. The opponent hadn't expected him to appear so suddenly. It was too late to kill him. On the other hand, one of his teammates had wanted to use the opportunity to chase the Almighty to the bottom of the tower, but he was instantly killed by the Almighty. Unexpectedly, the Almighty jumped and bounced back. 3 skills were critical hits. That person was instantly stunned. Lin Feng went forward, crouching with a big move. Double kill. Awesome. Captain, continue. It was said that Hero was a game that emphasized teamwork. What would it feel like to have a godlike assassin? It felt like killing all the way to the end. Pushing down the tower wasn't a big deal. They wanted to kill. Bojiu was taken aback by the Almighty's playing style. It was one thing to watch him play on the screen, but it was another to watch him move the mouse with her own eyes. Anyway, the Almighty could take on an entire team. Hence, Bojiu didn't leave the city. She held her chin mischievously, glancing sideways at Qin Mo while asking, "Brother Mo, have you never lost before?" Not only has he never lost, but he has also never died in the game. Lin Feng replied to the youngster, "Little Spade, why aren't you moving?" Bojiu smiled faintly. "If I move, it won't be fair to the opponent. You and the Almighty can have a 2v5. The moment she finished her sentence, the person on the other side who was killed seemed to be very unconvinced. He shouted the Almighty's alt account's name. "Assassin on the other side, just you wait." Just you wait? Bojiu thought to herself. He had to die. Qin Mo didn't say anything, but there was one thing. He stopped right in front of the tower, and did not move an inch. The other party had sent 3 people at once. The leader snorted. Since he wants to die so badly, let's fulfill his wish. But who knew that just as he finished speaking, the person in front of him disappeared in a flash. F***ck invisibility? Before he could finish his sentence, a silver light pierced through his back and went straight for his vitals. This was the first move, the second was a deceleration critical strike, and the third was a retreat. All that could be heard was the sound of AK. Oh, if one were to describe the Almighty's technique in one sentence, it would be that he could kill a person within 10 steps without leaving a trace. Most importantly, he only killed that person and didn't touch anyone else. From then on, he only caught that person. After killing the opponent 3 times, that person was so scared that he didn't even dare to leave the city. This was destined to be a loss. The other party's city protecting crystal was gone. However, some people were just stubborn. "Haha, you're awesome, you're awesome. If you have the ability, come to the city and kill me." As soon as he said this, Bojiu saw the Almighty move. First he went invisible. Then he sprinted. Without anyone noticing, he used a big move, forcefully killing someone under the crystal. The other party's teammates would definitely surround the Almighty. Chapter 6:16. On the screen, there were indeed 2 people sprinting out of the city, heading towards Qin Mo. But Bojiu hadn't expected someone to be so fast when he returned. Just as she leaned over, intending to kiss the Almighty's cheek and create trouble for him, Qin Mo had finished dealing with the 2 people opposite him. Qin Mo had finished dealing with the 2 people on the other side. He sensed the youngster's approach and came over. In that instant, the 2 of them froze in place. Because of his coincidental action, Bojiu leaned over and kissed his lips instead of his face. Instead, she kissed his beautiful lips. Both of them were really close. They sat on the chairs in the internet cafe, but their lips were stuck together. Bojiu's dark pupils trembled. The touch on his lips was icy cold, with a familiar minty tobacco fragrance, soft and penetrating into his heart. Bojiu could see the smile on the Almighty's lips, the strands of his black hair falling down. His thick eyelashes were bewitching, his slightly curled lashes tinged with a faint silver ash. His fair and tall nose bridge was like ancient jade and ivory. His lips were pale and pure, glistening like pearls. Coupled with his face full of lust, it was a captivating sight. Bojio couldn't describe her feelings, except for the clear sound of her heartbeat. It was the unique sound of the internet cafe's keyboard. But at this moment, even the sound of the keyboard seemed to have been hidden. The surroundings seemed to have quietened down. Lin Feng, who was sitting beside her, turned when he saw the 3 kills on the screen. He was just about to shout, "Cool," when he saw the scene he had never expected to see. Little Spade was extremely close to his captain. It wasn't just close, their mouths were touching. Looking at the scene in front of him, Lin Feng's mouth was wide open into the shape of an O. For a moment, his thoughts were in a mess. How could he have the time to care about his own game? He just sat there dumbfounded. He even forgot to move his mouse. He was petrified. And from the looks of it, Little Spade was the one who initiated it? What did Little Spade mean? Was he so upset that his captain had a girlfriend that he couldn't take it anymore, and decided to make a move on him? Honestly, as someone who was often heartbroken, Lin Feng could understand the youngster's actions. But Little Spade, did it ever cross your mind that Captain would destroy you if you treated him this way? In Hero, the other party wasn't aware of the situation. When they saw the expert who had killed the 3 of them suddenly standing there motionlessly, they thought it was a trap. Hence, he had shot an arrow from afar. When there wasn't any reaction, he had hurried over and started shooting randomly at Qin Mo. Finally, he had killed him. The sound of death came from the game, causing Bojio to retract herself. Qin Mo continued to stare at the youngster. He didn't kill her like Lin Feng had said. Instead, his gaze deepened, glinting with an unfathomable glint. His brows were arched as though he was waiting for her to give him. This was the first time since the game. Bojio mows to kill him. Chapter 6:17. After that, both of them didn't move. In the noisy internet cafe, they sat shoulder to shoulder, looking at each other in the corner. Just as Qin Mo had said, no one saw what the youngster did. Everyone was playing, clamoring for the top lane or the jungles. Only Lin Feng saw it. But that was why Lin Feng was even more shocked. Captain was actually kissed by Little Spade. He was kissed just like that. He wasn't angry. The music in the game was still blaring. The opponent was attacking. 5 of them were playing, but 4 of them didn't leave the city. Yin, who reached out to tap his earpiece, his eyes still on the screen. "Phone, go to the top lane to catch them." No one replied. Yin, who glanced over, asking Lin Feng, "Why aren't you moving?" Lin Feng grabbed Yin, who and gestured for him to keep quiet. He lowered his voice and said, "Let me have some peace first." "Who? Do you know what I saw just now?" Little Spade leaned over and forcefully kissed Captain. If Lin Feng had said this in the past, Yin Hu would definitely have believed him. But now, Yin Hu didn't think so. Because the captain he knew wouldn't allow anyone to forcefully kiss him if he wasn't willing. Besides, Yin Hu was still suspecting that the girl in the convenience store was Little Spade. And recently, Captain's attitude towards Little Spade. He had never seen Captain being so indulgent towards anyone. Even though Captain had said that Little Spade was his younger brother, no one had ever treated his younger brother in such a manner. Hence, when Lin Feng started to speak again, Yin Hu pressed him down and turned to look over. At this moment, Qin Mo's gaze hadn't left the youngster. Bojio had a serious expression, looking a little annoyed. "Brother Mo, believe me, this is just a coincidence." Qin Mo glanced at the youngster, placing down the mouse in his right hand. He asked slowly, "The confession is a coincidence, saying that he wants to keep me as a coincidence, wanting to sleep with me is a coincidence. And now he's leaning over to kiss me is also a coincidence. Is this the explanation of a wall-jumping scholar?" Lin Feng gave the youngster a stern look. "Little Spade, stop being so stubborn. Is it that hard to admit that you like Captain? It's up to you whether you admit it or not. Everything you've done is enough to prove that you love our Captain to the extreme. You even dared to force a kiss in an internet cafe. I admire you." Bojio felt that she wouldn't be able to clear her name after the Almighty's words. She could predict the future just by looking at Lin Feng's eyes. Did this matter have to be so depressing? The Almighty in the game was indeed dead. But the price she had to pay was a little too high. Looking at the youngster's slightly depressed face, Qin Emo knew that it was just like what the youngster had said. It was just an accident. But the more he thought about it, the deeper Qin Mo's gaze became. The last thing he wanted to see was the young man wanting to explain himself and draw a line with him after kissing him. Chapter 6:18. What? Bojiu arched a brow. What else could she do? A kiss was a kiss. She couldn't let the Almighty kiss her again. Qin Emo lowered his breath. At that distance, his breath brushed past her lips. You have to take responsibility for kissing me, do you understand? Responsibility? The Almighty had kissed her twice, but she hadn't asked him to take responsibility. She had only kissed him once, and he was asking her to take responsibility? Bojiu arched a brow, breaking into a smile. If Brother Emo doesn't mind, I can bring him home. When Lin Feng heard this, he covered his face. Little Spade, you still haven't changed your evil intentions towards Captain. Bojiu admitted her intentions since the Almighty wouldn't agree to it. But who knew that the Almighty's thoughts would always be like the weather forecast, never accurate? Sure. Two calm words, his voice filled with a familiar magnetism. It wasn't just Lin Feng. Even Yun, who turned over when he heard the reply. The player was still hooting. The opposing team must be stunned. This is our true ability. We were just letting you guys have your way. It was probably because his voice had affected the atmosphere at the moment. Qin Emo glanced over, grabbing onto the mouse once more. With a beautiful maneuver, he went invisible before launching a sudden attack, heading straight for the opponent's crystal. Ha again? That's how you died the last time, have you forgotten? It was obvious that the opposing team wanted to use the same method to kill the Almighty, but they hadn't expected it. This time, the other party's reaction was completely different from the last time. Not only did he kill a single person, he immediately killed a second person, then a third, a fourth, a fifth. 1 kill, 5 kills. Half a HP destroyed the city. The opposing team was completely dumbfounded. Who could tell them why the opposing team's standards were so high and low? Since they were so strong, why did they stand there and let them kill them 3 times? Were they playing with them? Of course, they wouldn't have expected it. The reason Qin Emo stopped moving was because of the youngster's kiss. And the reason they were wiped out was because of the conversation between Almighty Qin and a certain someone. The game ended. It was very straightforward. Qin Emo reached for his jacket and glanced at her, his lips lifting into a devilish smile. Let's find a secluded place to talk about bringing me home. After all. Qin Emo paused, his voice slowing. You will be embarrassed in front of so many people. Bojiu. The Almighty's hobby was to use her words to shut her up. In the end, this was a trap from the very beginning. Furthermore, it was a huge pit that was extremely difficult to fill. Qin Emo didn't say anything else. He reached out to grab her wrist, wanting to drag her out. Suddenly, an image appeared on the big screen in the center of the internet cafe. It was none other than an esports host interviewing the Japanese team. The Japanese were the strongest team in Asia. If Xiangnan was said to be China's ever-victorious team, in that case, the Japanese would be a winning team in the international arena. In the past 10 years, Dongying had never lost a single battle. Chapter 6:19. Back then, the existence of the Japanese had ignited the esports craze in Asia. In the past, esports had never been called esports, it had been called gaming. But now, esports had gradually become a recognized profession. There were even schools that offered esports as a profession. This was all because of the Japanese team's appearance, and the Chinese had realized that gaming could also attract fans. That year, anyone who had been a gamer wouldn't have heard of the team. Even now it was the same. The fans of Heroes hadn't expected the Japanese to be invited to the National League. In that instant, the entire internet cafe was in an uproar. Did you see that? That's the legendary Hoshino, who rarely shows himself. Do you know what he's best at? Triple kill at critical HP, a Grim Reaper wielding a scythe. Isn't the interview taking place in China? Gosh, I really want to know where they are right now. I would like to meet my idol. Wait, it seems like the Japanese aren't here as guests. After the National League, there will be an Asian League competition here. And the Japanese are here to represent their country in the competition. However, the Japanese are really shameless. Listen to what the host said. They said that they only know Xiangnan in China, and that Xiangnan is the only team they know. They haven't even heard of the other teams. It can't be helped, the Japanese are too strong. No one could understand the Japanese's strength better than the gamers. They were an unshakable existence. It wasn't surprising that they reacted in such a manner. Lin Feng and Yun, who had been watching the video as well, because they hadn't known there would be an Asian League after the National League. Therefore, after the host finished asking the questions, they put down the mouse in their hands one by one and looked at the interview on the screen, full of vigilance against a strong enemy. But it was obvious that Bojio wasn't. She looked at the people on the big screen without moving. He was dressed in a professional uniform, his legs long and slender, his features mesmerizing as he answered the host with a slight smile. If I say I sent it to my crush, will I lose fans? Hoshino. Bojio paused instinctively, all her attention focused on him. She didn't notice the change in the Almighty's gaze the moment she stopped. When Qin Emo followed the youngster's line of sight, he recognized the person on the screen immediately. Back in Tokyo, the young man stopped abnormally when he saw the image of this person. It was the same today. Once again, Qin Emo could see the focus in the youngster's eyes. It was a focus that was different from when the youth looked at anyone else. It was as if even the bottom of his eyes would jump with light. That kind of light might not be easily discovered. But precisely because Qin Emo had been watching her, he managed to catch it. Even he didn't seem to have that kind of focus. Qin Emo slowly stuffed his hands into his pockets. He glanced at the youngster's side profile and then at the youngster who was staring at the screen. His head hung low, and the stray hair on his forehead covered his eyes. Only his half-curled lips could be seen, as if he was smiling. Chapter 620. This should be the first time the Japanese have made such a high-profile appearance. I didn't expect them to be so good-looking. Lin Feng stood up, walking towards them. I wonder if there will be any arrangements for the competition. Qin Emo remained silent. Yun, who glanced at him. Regardless, we just have to do our best. Of course. Lin Feng chuckled, turning towards the youngster. Little Spade has to resolve his conflict with Captain. If not, our main team members wouldn't be able to adjust their emotions and lose. Yin, who didn't think it could be resolved so easily, there had to be an opportunity to clear things up. But the National League wasn't the time to talk about personal feelings. The appearance of the Japanese meant that this year's National League would be different from previous years. The skies outside darkened. Qin Emo didn't hold the youngster responsible, because he received another call. This time it was from the hospital regarding his hand injury. Back then, Fengyi had left Qin Mo's doctor's phone number. Hence, both of them would be notified at the same time. After leaving the internet cafe, Qin Emo headed to the hospital without telling anyone. But before he went to the hospital, he took one last look at the youngster and sent a message to Fatty. When you're investigating, check if he knows Hoshino. In the past, Qin Emo wouldn't have bothered about anyone's friendship. Perhaps, even he didn't know why he was so concerned about the youngster's focus. Perhaps it was because Qin Emo was familiar with the youngster's looks. Although he seemed gentle on the surface, his eyes had never been like that. That flickering darkness made him yearn for it. After watching the interview in the internet cafe, Bojio had indeed hidden her thoughts. She was wondering if she should acknowledge Hoshino. It was obvious that she wasn't the same as she had been in the past. Anyone who heard of such a thing would probably feel that it was absurd. She had been resurrected, and she had been reborn as a high school student. Even though she trusted Hoshino's ability to accept it, she still wondered if it was appropriate to acknowledge him. In the past, she never knew that Hoshino would choose to enter the esports industry after she left. In fact, if she thought about it carefully, Hoshino had said a long time ago that other than sleeping, the only other thing he loved to do was play games. Hoshino was different from him. There was no need for him to carry the burden of what she had to carry. The strength of the police this time was obviously different from before. Plus, the Almighty was here. Furthermore, China wasn't the Fifth Avenue, and it wasn't Tokyo either. The environment was bound to restrict their movements. If one day she was suspected, it wouldn't matter even if she went to jail. But Hoshino couldn't. She had to protect that person. That night, the First Central Hospital of Rivertown, the surgery building, 3rd floor. Chapter 621. I have to compete. After listening to the attending physician's words, Chin-emo reached out and unrolled his half-rolled sleeves. The attending physician shook his head at his indifferent and handsome side profile. That was what Fengyi heard when he arrived. His smiling eyes lost the light they had when he arrived. The last time he asked, Almighty Qin told him not to worry about his hand injury, so he thought it was already healed. But now that he thought about it, if he had recovered a long time ago, the attending physician wouldn't have asked him to pay more attention at that time. Fengyi tightened his grip on the door handle and pushed it open. He ignored Qin-mo's gaze and focused on the attending physician. Dr. Liu, I will let him rest according to what you said. Can you tell me how long he needs to rest? At least 3 months. 3 months. Fengyi knew what this meant. The entire National League was only 20 days long. 3 months meant that Almighty Qin had to give up this year's competition. Seeing this, the attending physician paused for a moment before continuing. Of course, if you were to make a trip to America and ask the experts there, you might be able to save some time. They have a way to stabilize it, but even so, you'll still need at least a month of rest. The nerves in the hand are very sensitive. In addition to your profession, the more intense the competition, the more flexible the fingers and the strength of the wrist are required. His hand might not be able to withstand such a huge amount of pressure if he's concentrated for a long period of time. I know that the National League is very important to you, but no matter how important a competition is, it can't compare to the health of a hand. Fengyi understood. Ever since he met Chin-emo, he knew he was born for esports. It was just that in the beginning as a manager, he had too many flaws. That was why even though he had won the Most Valuable Player award, he had never won a team championship. It wasn't like Xiangnan didn't try to poach Almighty Qin back then. However, that person refused. He also took out a sum of money to strengthen the Supreme Alliance. From then on, the Supreme Alliance belonged to the Qin Corporation. He finally didn't have to go back to inherit the family business that he didn't like. He started to have his own direction, and became one of the top esports agents in the country. However, he owed that person a national championship. He owed it from the very beginning. They had thought that with Spadesy this year, that person could finally return to his old playstyle. Fengyi still hadn't forgotten the thought that prompted him to become a manager. It was the scene of that aloof youngster waving his mouse and wiping out the entire team in a 1v5. To be honest, at that time, he had tricked the Almighty. Originally, he didn't have much experience as a manager. It was just that his family was in the entertainment industry, so he didn't know that esports and entertainment were different. Other than handling some things well, it was more important to find good teammates. Come to think of it, ever since the team battle, that person had never waved his mouse as unscrupulously as before. But when it came to working with Little Spade, Fengyi lowered his lids. Dr. Liu is right. No matter how important the competition is, it can't compare to the health of a hand. Chapter 622. Yes, it isn't just a competition for Supreme Alliance, but you have to receive treatment. Fengyi didn't back down. Head to America first and we can talk about the future. Chin-emo buttoned up his shirt slowly and stuffed his hand into his pocket. His gaze was deep. I'm not going. The attending physician let out a long sigh. Is winning or losing really that important? It's not a matter of winning or losing. When Chin-emo said this, he had already walked to the door. His voice was neither loud nor soft. I just don't want to leave behind any regrets. No matter if they won or lost. His biggest regret was not being able to participate. He had said that he wanted to lead Supreme Alliance to the national championship, and not be absent when Supreme Alliance lost. Regardless of whether he could continue his career in the future, he couldn't leave now. Of course, Fengyi knew what Qin Mo was thinking. He knew he couldn't persuade him. But he couldn't let things develop like this. Looking at the tall and straight back disappearing at the end of the corridor. The more Fengyi thought about it, the more likely candidate was Bojio. He knew better than anyone else who Almighty Qin had kissed at the masquerade party. He also knew that to Almighty Qin, that young man was different from anyone else. After leaving the hospital, Fengyi called the youngster. This was the first time he didn't follow Qin Mo's instructions. The night outside was dark and gloomy. His voice had also changed. He was no longer the old fox. There's something I need to talk to you about. When she received the call, Bojio had just reached home. She was biting on the zipper of her jacket and preparing to remove her clothes. When she heard Fengyi's words, she paused. Without asking, she stuffed a hand into her pocket, her voice clear. Sure, where do you want to meet? Fengyi admired the youth's straightforwardness. At the same time, he knew very well that the youth was tight-lipped. In some ways, Spade Z and Almighty Qin had too many similarities. The most important thing in a match was who would set the pace. In order to convince Almighty Qin to treat his hand injury first, there had to be a fiery person to lead the Supreme Alliance. Yin Hu and Lin Feng weren't suitable. Spade Z was the only one who had never lost, just like how he had been when he first appeared. The night grew darker. He Honghua was still boiling soup when she saw her Jiu pull up the zipper of her jacket to the top and put on a pure black mask. Her gaze froze. Why did you go out as soon as you came back? Something came up last minute. Bojio smiled faintly, her exposed eyes beautiful. Mom, I'll accompany you when I come back. He Honghua was very easy to coax. After hearing her Jiu's words, she instructed. It's cold outside, and the smog is heavy. Wear another mask and clothes. Don't catch a cold. Jiu's body usually looked fine, but once he caught a cold, it would be worse than normal. That was why He Honghua was so nervous. But fortunately, now her economic conditions were better again. In addition, Jiu didn't go to those messy nightclubs anymore. He Honghua was relieved. Fengyi arranged to meet at a coffee shop. The cafe was only open until 10 p.m., but it was quiet and no one from the media would notice them, so it was convenient for them to talk. Chapter 623. This is the scam the doctor gave Almighty Qin today. It's about his injury. The attending doctor said that he has to stop all competitions or his hand might not be able to play anymore. Bojio stilled. In that moment, she forgot to remove her mask. During the competition, no one had mentioned the Almighty's injury, but she had assumed that since he was able to participate in the competition again, it meant that he had recovered. Why? Only you know about this, Fengyi continued, tilting his head towards the window. Fengyi continued, tilting his head to look out the window. Lin Feng and the others all thought that Almighty Qin had recovered. In fact, if the attending doctor hadn't called me, I wouldn't have realized it. The moment he said that, the atmosphere turned heavy. The atmosphere seemed to be heavy, and neither of them spoke. Fengyi wasn't sure how long had passed. The youngster sitting opposite him finally spoke, her dark eyes deep. Brother Mo won't give up on this competition. That's what he insists on. Fengyi paused. You're right. I'll look for him tomorrow. With that, Bojio stood up. I understand what you mean. He has to be treated first. Similarly, Bojio knew what it meant for the Almighty to miss the National League. Bojio realized she had been wrong. Back then, the Almighty had mentioned that he might be absent for 1 or 2 matches. She had assumed he was going to investigate Z. But after hearing Fengyi's words, she understood that it wasn't because of the police but because his injury had reached a certain threshold. In order to prevent his opponents from finding his weakness at the start of the National League, he would be absent for the first 2 matches. It wouldn't be a problem during the regular games, but it would be a different story when it came to a professional competition. The faster the hand speed, the more severe the damage to the Almighty's hand. Moreover, the Almighty had used the 3000 knife cutting. Such a special technique didn't just depend on the opponent's speed, but also the strength of the wrist. Hence, the pressure on the wrist would be felt indirectly. But once he entered the National League, it wouldn't be as easy as the regional competition, especially against Xiangnan in the future. Regardless of whether it was a 1v1 or 5v5, the Almighty would lose if he didn't use the 3000 knife cutting. Based on her understanding of the Almighty, if he used 3000 knife cutting again, the consequences would be unimaginable. Even though the Almighty knew about it, he still decided to use it limitlessly in the semifinals, especially against Xiangnan, for Supreme Alliance to win the national championship. He had long planned to use his future career in esports to exchange for it. Otherwise, the Almighty wouldn't have hidden his hand injury. Firstly, he didn't want anyone to stop him after finding out. Secondly, he didn't want anyone to feel burdened. From the start, Bojio had said that she couldn't bear to see him lose and couldn't bear to see him walk down the altar. A person like the Almighty, handsome on the outside and perfect on the inside, shouldn't have such regrets. For the first time, he felt sorry for someone else. Bojio's thoughts were more important. Forgive her selfishness. The people around him were the most important. The youngster lowered his lids and opened his email on his phone. He paused all actions to track down the fake Spadesy and hit his tracks again. Chapter 624. The National League was around the corner. An overwhelming number of reports came flooding in. Just as Fengyi had said, no one in the team knew about Qin Mo's hand injury. Many of them had been waiting for this day for a long time, be it the old members like Lin Feng or the new members like Shui Yaoyao. The National League wasn't just a competition to them. All the mockery disappeared. Or perhaps they could fight side by side. Shui Yaoyao couldn't explain her emotions. After a day of running, when she saw the day marked in red on the calendar, her heart beat slowly and solemnly. Yin Hu and Lin Feng were still practicing their hand speed. For the past 365 days, when others couldn't understand why they liked to play games, they had spent most of their time on it. There wasn't a single effort that shouldn't be fulfilled. But behind this kind of fulfillment, there was usually someone supporting them. The morning sun shone down gently. Almighty Qin hadn't expected to see the youngster sitting in his room the moment he opened his eyes. A certain someone was sitting by the window, holding a glass of milk as she fed the cat. The cat obviously didn't want to talk to her. A certain someone poured some milk onto her hand, ignoring the cat's disregard as she placed it on her fingertips. One look and it was obvious that she hadn't kept any animals. Indeed, Bojio hadn't kept any animals. After she had arrived, Movie Queen had tasked her with waking the Almighty up and feeding the cat at the same time. She felt that it would be better to wait for the Almighty to wake up naturally, hence, she had decided to feed the cat first. Who knew that the Almighty's cat would treat the handsome guy like dirt, giving him an arrogant expression. I'm going to shave your fur, let's see if you're still like this. Qin Mo, who had just woken up, heard the small threat. Qin Mo arched a brow. He had just woken up and his voice was hoarse but magnetic. Princess, come here. The cat heard his voice. It meowed immediately, pouncing towards the beautiful man on the bed. Where was the arrogance? Bojio placed the milk down, watching the fat cat. The big fat cat seemed to have sensed her gaze. He turned and shot her a look that said she was a stupid human, allowing her to experience it herself. Bojio smiled. Brother Mo, how about grilled cat claws for breakfast? Be careful, it might take it seriously and give you a claw. Qin Mo looked at the youngster and didn't have the slightest intention of getting up. Bojio arched a brow. You must be a female. It's male. Qin Mo caressed the cat's body with one hand and leaned against the headboard. Bojio paused. A male cat called Princess? What? Not good. Qin Mo raised his eyebrows. Bojio smiled. That's good. Princess, call one over. The big fat cat. Meow, this human with a suspicious aura. Don't think that I can't understand the smile in his voice. So what if a male cat is called a princess? What happened? Qin Mo glanced at the ball that had exploded in his hand, his brows twitching. How did you provoke it? It usually doesn't do this to boys. Because I'm not a boy. Bojio sat on the chair and placed her chin on the back of the chair. She glanced at the cat and thought that it must have smelled his scent. She smiled. I'm not sure. It's probably the first time we're meeting. He thinks I'm too handsome and is jealous. Chapter 625. He forced himself not to think about the uncontrollable images. It wasn't difficult for Qin Mo. But he had never felt the urge to kiss and possess her the moment he saw her. After calming down, he found it comfortable to be in this position. The young man was sitting very close to him. No matter how he looked at him, he was pleasing to the eye. The youngster dragged the chair until it was the closest to him. Brother Mo, are you taking in a disciple? What do you want? Qin Mo watched the face that was so close to him, the white skin with the fur on it. Bojio smiled. There's a mission in the hero game that requires both master and disciple to complete. Brother Mo, can you teach me how to play like a bookworm, using calculations to fight a 1v5? Qin Mo released the cat. You want to change your strategy? Be more precise. Bojio knew she wasn't the same type as the Almighty. She wouldn't change her strategy, but she needed to improve. Fortunately, Qin Mo wouldn't reject the youngster's request. He said faintly, come over. Bojio was focused on improving herself and raising her conditions. She didn't notice their positions. Qin Mo didn't notice either. Qin Mo's hand went around the youngster's back and pointed at the screen. With your positioning, you should be able to use this formation to control him, then calculate. His voice was very low, and when it rang in the ears, it gave people the feeling that he was still talking about physics. It wasn't until later that Qin Mo realized their position. Surprisingly, a certain someone was exceptionally obedient today. Qin Mo lowered his lids to look at the person in his arms. She was scrolling through the characters on her phone, trying to control his urge to kiss her. He took a photo when the youngster wasn't paying attention. The photo was affectionate and wouldn't cause anyone to think otherwise. But Qin Mo had said that he wanted everyone to know who this person belonged to. There were still people expressing their opinions on the official Weibo. Some people were unwilling to be left out. Basically, they felt that Spadesy was putting on a show. Qin Mo's methods were always ruthless. He posted the photo with a few words. A certain someone's way of coaxing others is to come over to my place to play games. The moment the reply came out, quite a few people said, I told you to give out dog food. Almighty Qin didn't give out dog food yesterday, but that didn't mean there wasn't any dog food. Why did it feel like they were being abused? Just playing games? Playing games while sitting in my arms? I also want to sit in my boyfriend's arms and play games in the future. Little Spade is gaming and Almighty Qin doesn't forget to take pictures. This gives me a lot of room to think. Let's not talk about anything else. Both of them are so handsome, and Almighty Qin has just woken up and discovered another incredible secret. How can they be so pleasing to the eye? Almighty Qin, you've changed. Almighty Qin. Bojio, who was still absorbing all the attacks, didn't see the official Weibo. She glanced down at the screen and waited for the 1v5 team to be wiped out before saying, Brother Mo, I know about your hand injury. Qin Mo frowned. He stopped scrolling through his official Weibo, his side profile handsome. Why are you so obedient today? Are you here to persuade me? Chapter 626. Qin Mo had thought that this guy would talk a lot, but on second thought, this guy was never one to talk so much. But Qin Mo glanced at the youngster who was leaning close to him. He reached out to flick the sharp handsome face and said slowly, Are you trying to force me to treat you or force me to sleep with you? Qin Mo's eyes widened, and his voice was calm. Are you forcing me to treat you or to sleep with you? There was such a coincidence in one situation. Because Princess ran down, Auntie Zhang held the cat and stood at the door in a daze. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. The plump princess cried out in her arms. In the words of a cat, it was, You human with an abnormal aura, let go of my master. Of course, Bojio heard the commotion. She turned and glanced at Madame Zhang's expression. I knew it. There was no need to say anything. After all, her current posture looked like she was about to force herself on him. Coupled with the Almighty's words and her previous dark history, there was no way she could clear her name. Qin Mo also saw the person over there. He raised his eyebrows and said slowly, Aunt Zhang, what's the matter? No, I'll carry the princess away. You guys continue. Auntie Zhang almost ran away, feeling very conflicted. If it was a girl who treated the young master like that, he could understand. Why did ninth young master's actions just now? She must be thinking too much. But young master had clearly said the word sleep. It was a mess, a complete mess. So ninth young master had that kind of feelings for young master? Auntie Zhang hugged the princess, not caring if the princess would scream or not. She was in a daze. In the room, they were still staring at each other. Almighty Qin put his hand on the young man's waist and smiled faintly. What? You're not going to force me anymore? Bojiu arched a brow and pressed herself down, her breath landing beside his ear. She smiled. Brother Mo, think about it. If something really happens to your hand, even someone as strong as me would be able to push you down. It would be too dangerous. I'm just complimenting your handsomeness. It would make you lose control. Qin Mo's eyes darkened, probably because he had seen the youngster in female clothing. Now, as long as this fellow supported himself by her side and approached her in this manner, the image in her mind would no longer be so pure. Since it was this person who took the initiative to approach, then don't blame me for being impolite. Qin Mo exerted force with his left hand and flipped the person over. He pressed down on the youngster's shoulder and looked at the beautiful collarbone that was pulled out. His thin lips moved closer to that place and his voice was deep. How can you not control yourself, She didn't expect the Almighty to tease her like this. His warm breath hit her collarbone, and it was hard to ignore. The most important thing was that the Almighty actually bit down on it. It was a real bite. Bojiu felt hopeless. But since she had made preparations before coming, the Almighty wouldn't notice her secret. Hence she didn't move. It would be dangerous if she moved further. In the future, she would be called the little bandage expert and the fake top scholar. It was a little painful and a little numb. In the end, there was only an indescribable feeling. Qin Mo lowered his head, his black hair falling down, covering his expression. His eyes were deep and unfathomable. Chapter 627. Hey Brother Mo, are you born in the year of the tiger? Bojiu moved, avoiding the ambiguous position. Her movements were still beautiful. Even if you want to bite me, I'll force you to go for treatment. With that, Bojiu poked his right wrist. It's so perfect, there shouldn't be any flaws. Otherwise, how are we going to catch criminals in the future? Catch criminals with your brain, not your hands. Qin Mo looked at the youngster. His hair fell down and he looked exceptionally handsome. I won't miss this National League. You don't have to say anything else, understand? Bojiu nodded. That's why I think we should make a compromise. You can go to America for treatment first and I'll fight the first few matches. I will last until the semifinals. I won't allow myself to lose and neither will Supreme Alliance to lose. Qin Mo remained silent. Bojiu arched a brow. She pulled his hand over and clenched it into a fist. Brother Mo, you should trust me, just like how I trust you. Besides, hero relies on strategy. If you use too much 3000 knife cutting in the early stages, you won't be able to keep up in the later stages. With Xiangnan's ability, if you can't go all out because of your hand injury, Brother Mo, you'll be even more regretful. 15 days. Qin Mo glanced up. I will only be gone for 15 days. During these 15 days, you have to inform me if anything happens. Bojiu chuckled. 16 days, one more day to take a plane. Qin Mo didn't want to bargain with a certain someone. He just looked at the collarbone that he had landed hard on, his gaze deepening. Then he pushed the youngster away and pulled a towel. Where are you going? Bojiu stood up as well. Why did they end up talking? Qin Mo threw a few words over without turning his head. Shower? Do you want to join me? I'm afraid I'll be jealous of Brother Mo's body, so I'll pass. Bojiu found an excuse. I'm going downstairs to play games with Auntie. Brother Mo, after you shower, pack your things. I'll send you to the airport. Qin Mo watched the youngster's back view. Not only did a certain part not show any signs of softening, it even moved upwards. He was really going crazy. Qin Mo bent down and tore off his pants, along with his casual clothes. He took a cold shower, and the water droplets sobered up his body. However, his desire to obtain that person did not change. The beast imprisoned in the depths of his heart. He didn't know how long he would be locked up. If it wasn't for that person, perhaps he could do whatever he wanted. But it was precisely because he was that person. Not to mention disgust, he didn't want to see even the slightest bit of alienation. Chinemo changed his clothes and went downstairs. The sound effect of Hero was already playing. Movie Queen and was rather adorable when she played. She kept talking. What's wrong with this sorcerer? I've already beaten him to low health, but he didn't continue fighting. Instead, he charged to the tower to attack it. There are a lot of new players in the mobile version. The youngster laughed. While playing with his phone, he didn't forget to turn his head to look. Hide in the bushes and wait for me. Movie Queen was a little excited. Usually, this meant that Jill was going to lead her to kill someone. It was an interesting strategy. But before they could start killing, the youngster was pulled up by Chinemo. He held onto her wrist, his voice low and deep as he leaned close to Bojio's face. Didn't you say you were sending me to the airport? Chapter 628. Movie Queen didn't understand. Why are you going to the airport? The National League is tomorrow and the first match is in Jiang City, isn't it? She came back to watch the competition. Chinemo replied. Leave the rest of the competition to Jio. I'm going to treat my hand. Movie Queen paused, glancing at Chinemo's wrist. You're not healed yet. Chinemo didn't want to say in front of the youngster that he had only temporarily treated his heart. Movie Queen smiled faintly, looking very elegant. I understand. Go, let Deputy Zhang follow you. Chinemo didn't reject the arrangement. It was best not to let the outside world know what he was going to do. But his hand was still holding on to the youngster, with no intention of letting go. Movie Queen watched as the two of them left, her voice filled with relief. Madame Zhang, Mo finally took the initiative to treat his injury. He even left in peace. It wasn't easy. Yes, madam. Madame Zhang stood at the side. Movie Queen chuckled. He probably found someone worthy of his trust. To him, Jill is very precious. That scene still lingered in her mind. Madame Zhang didn't know how to reply. She couldn't possibly tell Madame that young Master Jill had almost forced himself on her, right? But judging from young Master's attitude, he was probably willing to be forced on. Madame Zhang had served the Qin family all her life, and had seen such things in the courtyard. Sometimes two soldiers could see eye to eye, but it was a difficult path to walk. Hence, she chose not to say anything. In her heart, she hoped that the two young masters could think it through and be happy. But someone else didn't think so. Wu Zhen, who couldn't stand the youngster, tightened her grip on the mouse after seeing Qin Mo's official Weibo account. She took a deep breath and stood up. In reality, she couldn't understand why she had liked that person for so many years. Why didn't he ever respond to her? This kind of method was really too chilling. But no matter what, she still liked him. And all these changes were because of that clingy thing. Perhaps she should change her method. Wu Zhen lowered her gaze and dialed Han Susu's number. The first thing she said was, "The young man you like should be gay." Han Susu didn't pay much attention to the rest. When the person she liked turned out to be a gay, it was as if all the illusions had been shattered. She had supported Spadesy so much and trusted him so much. She didn't expect him to be like this. Disgusting. Han Susu rubbed her arms. No wonder he never responded to me. So that's why. I really misjudged him. I must expose him at the national competition. Wu Zhen frowned. It won't be good for Supreme Alliance. You should know that Brother Mo values Supreme Alliance the most. What should I do? I'm really disgusted right now. Some people's liking will deteriorate. When this liking deteriorated, it would become a kind of harm. Wu Zhen was very clear, so she wouldn't do anything. She only told Han Susu, and if Han Susu couldn't help it, she would do it herself. She would even thank Wu Zhen after she was done. In fact, Wu Zhen treated Han Susu as her younger sister, which was why she said all this. A gay, relying on the fact that he was a man, could get so close to that person, and he was getting more and more out of hand. He didn't respond to those who liked him. Such an existence violated the rules of this world. Chapter 629. I can't let my love go to waste. Han Susu continued on the other side of the phone. This kind of person is really scum. I want to expose him. After making this decision, Han Susu hung up Wu Zhen's call and started to think. She usually called so many friends to support that person. Wasn't it because she liked him? She thought that the youth didn't respond to her because of his cold personality. Now it seemed that he was a gay who had always been fawning over Big Brother Qin. She wanted to see how he could compete in peace after she exposed him. There were many kinds of likes, and the most terrifying one was extreme. Those who were used would never realize that they were being used. Even if he realized it, he was willing to do it. It was very simple because that was human nature. It had nothing to do with right or wrong. There was a saying, "If I like you, then you must like me." I've already used my own way to like you, but if you still treat me like this, then I'll be disappointed in you. Han Susu was such a person. Moreover, this kind of person had always been self-righteous. If he gathered his friends to denounce a person, at the very least, he would be able to tear down that gay's disguise. That was Han Susu's goal. A matter had long changed its flavor through her imagination. Moreover, she felt that she had done so many things before and had not received any response. The other party was really not worthy, so when it came to her, the matter changed again. In addition, the average age of fans in the esports circle was quite young, so a few of them gathered together to discuss. If I knew he was gay, I wouldn't have liked him at all. In the past, when I saw him with the Almighty, I thought they were quite loving. Turns out he's actually gay. I can't accept it. We vote for him every day to boost his popularity. What a waste. Actually, I think it's fine even if it's a gay. Why didn't you tell everyone? I really like him, but this is the last time. Basically, there were all kinds of comments, and they all rushed to the official Weibo. Some of them weren't even Spade Z's fans. They were friends that Han Susu knew, pretending to be her fans and leaving messages as well. It revolved around the topic of gay men, and asked a lot of questions. We like you, and this is how you treat us. That was the tone. The audience thought that Spade Z had done something to the other party, and their faces were full of yexem. The official Weibo management was very effective, and explained the ins and outs of the matter. Putting aside the fact that my big Spade is straight, even if he is gay, has he slept with any of you? No, listen to me, Big Spade is gay, but he's Almighty Qin's. You guys have no hope really. Go get your lunchbox and go to sleep. We like him so much, but he's like this. As a passerby, I can't take it anymore. I feel that Spade Z is really inhumane, treating his fans like this. Confused, how did my big Spade treat his fans? He's gay, he didn't say that. Because the replies were too powerful, and it wasn't just one, but more than 10 of them appeared at the same time. Chapter 630. In fact, the real Spade Z fans wouldn't doubt it. They had already formed a force. From the start of the youngster's debut till now, they understood that youngster. As long as he didn't hurt anyone, so what if he liked someone of the same gender? Hence, when Feng Yi's post came out, everyone united together, presenting the facts and reasoning about what the person they liked was like. Of course, there were still layers upon layers of questioning messages. Feng Yi knew that some people wouldn't realize that they were hurting him, even though they said they liked him. Moreover, some of them weren't Spade Z fans. Because after some time, some people gave themselves away. One of the sock puppet's previous posts said, I would like to clarify something on behalf of all of us. We are all sensible. After all, we like Spade Z so much. Even if we are unhappy, we will support him silently. The next post said, Hee, who wants to cheer for him? I'm just a passerby, so I said a few words because I couldn't stand it. Feng Yi found it hilarious. It was a contradiction. It was a pity that some people were too young and couldn't understand. Fortunately, the Real Spade Z fans had become an invincible force. Sometimes he was really proud of this power. They didn't need too much emotional interaction, but they could see the true nature. Feelings might be precious. But when they came together and liked the same person, that was because that person had the same beliefs as them. Just like back then he chose Qin Mo. No matter what, he would believe in that person. Things didn't blow up. But once the word gay came out, someone would definitely notice it. And that was what Han Susu wanted. Next was to find someone. How could that be enough? She already knew about the incident at the crime scene. She couldn't cause trouble here, but it didn't mean she couldn't cause trouble at the scene. Coincidentally, she had met some hardcore fans and chatted with them. She could bring the troublemakers to the scene. She wouldn't have to do anything then. She could just watch like today. Sigh, she was really disgusting. How could she like a gay? And who did he think he was? He liked him so much, but he didn't reciprocate. She was just messing with him in passing. I like the feeling that he can't do anything to me even if he doesn't like me. Anyway, someone would stand up for her. Han Susu was right about this. Because Feng Yi needed time to deal with this. He didn't want to tell those two either. Feng Yi lifted his head and glanced at the clock hanging in the office. Little Spade had already sent a text saying that he had persuaded the person, and was now sending the Almighty to the airport. Feng Yi knew what Almighty Qin's departure meant to Supreme Alliance. At such a crucial time, everyone needed to stand together through thick and thin, because in the future, all the pressure would be on the young man alone. As smart as the youngster was, he understood that when a newcomer took over the position of the vice-captain of the Supreme Alliance, everyone would take it for granted if he won. But if he lost, he would face either incomprehension or condemnation. Even if he understood, the youngster didn't say much when he first found him. He only told him one thing. I won't let Brother Emo step down from the altar. When the young man said this, his eyes were so bright that they were almost black. Chapter 631. At that time, he was really touched. In the end, the youngster stopped him with a hand gesture, and very handsomely interrupted him. It's only right for a younger brother to do something for his older brother. So, are you really brothers? What about kissing? Don't bully me because I've never been in a relationship before. I still understand the most basic principles. Old Fox Feng didn't expose him. In his heart, he was certain that Little Spade was sacrificing himself for love. If he insisted on saying brother, what could he do? On the other side, the so-called brothers were saying goodbye at the airport. It was just that the Almighty's method was different from others. I'll have someone watch you. Qin Emo arched a brow. If you use that technique again, the police will arrest you. Do you understand what I'm saying? Bojio replied. I've been busy with the competition recently and haven't had time to use it. Give me your phone. Qin Mo's voice was faint. Bojio arched a brow. She didn't understand why the Almighty wanted her phone, but she still handed it over since it was a farewell. Qin Emo glanced at the call history, swiping his fingers, deleting a contact. It wasn't anyone else, it was Li Mengran. Break up, you have to be thorough, don't be a jerk. Alright Brother Emo, you're right. Bojio smiled faintly. Don't worry, it won't affect my competition. Qin Emo glanced at the youngster. Bojio assumed that with her good looks, she would be trusted. Unexpectedly, Qin Emo reached out and took the fat cat from Deputy Zhang, placing it in the youngster's hands. Let it supervise you. Meow. The big fat cat tilted its head. Bojio arched a brow. Princess. A cat supervising her? Yes, carry it everywhere you go. As soon as you get close to a girl, it will react. Qin Mo's voice was faint. The big fat cat reached out with his claws, scratching her with all his might. It was obvious he was treating her like a monster. Bojio pressed it down. I don't think it's useful, it doesn't get along with me. Then let it compete with you. If I find it thinner when I come back, I'll hold you responsible. Qin Emo said slowly. Bojio was confused. She had never had a pet before. How could she raise a cat that didn't look easy? That didn't seem good for her or the cat. The fat cat understood its master's meaning. It stopped scratching and turned its head to look at the handsome but oddly smelling young man in front of it. Its face could be made into an emoticon, and it had an expression of, what the F***ck. Adjutant Zhang watched from the side and couldn't help but want to laugh. Qin Emo didn't bother about them. An artificial voice rang out from the airport lobby. It was melodious and familiar, with a unique gentle quality. Attention all passengers. Your flight CA-8157 to New York is now boarding. Please board the plane from gate 13. Chin Mo didn't take the cat back, only lifting his luggage. His figure was tall and slender, his fingers clenched into a fist. He pushed the youngster's head, his gaze deep. Wait for me to come back. All right. Bo Jio had wanted to bid farewell to the Almighty properly, but the cat in her hand seemed to be playing with its life, tossing and turning nonstop. Chapter 632. Bo Jio hadn't expected this hug, until her face plunged into a warm chest. She could feel the sweater brushing against her cheeks, and the Almighty's other hand rubbing her head. At that moment, the surrounding voices became much quieter. When a person was too close to another person, one could hear the sound of their heartbeat. Because it was at the airport, everyone was saying goodbye. Therefore, even if a handsome man pulled the young man into his arms, no one would think too much. The only one who thought too much was Adjutant Zhang. After all, he wasn't like Feng Yi, who had never experienced something like this. It was his first time seeing young Master Qin hug someone. Both of them were eye-catching, not only in their faces but also in their figures, temperament, and clothes. Even though Bo Jio's head was buried in his embrace. However, the passers-by who went to board the plane could still see a young man in a black coat holding a white cat in his arms. His head was in the arms of a man. The man was very handsome. He had deep eyes, a straight nose, and slightly curved lips. He gave off a kind of indifference that was difficult to approach. However, the moment he touched the young man's face, his indifference seemed to have been melted by something, creating a smile that was like the first thaw of winter snow. If you don't want to go to jail, then be good. When I come back, I have something to tell you. Bo Jio arched a brow. She didn't care if she would end up in jail since she wasn't weak enough to be caught easily. But Almighty, please make it clear. What exactly did he have to say? Was he doing this on purpose by throwing out the question, and then walking away? Bo Jio watched his slender figure as he walked through the security checkpoint. He opened his arms wide for the security personnel to inspect. He was handsome. As expected, when the Almighty acted like this, she had the urge to raise him. Forget it, raising Almighty's cat was the same. She pressed down on the cat's tail again and threatened with a faint smile. Brother Mo is leaving. If you keep messing around, I'll shave off your fur. Meow meow meow. Master, come back quickly. This person with a strange aura is a pervert, meow. Even though she was threatening him, Bo Jio hugged the big fat cat gently. She was a minor so she couldn't drive. Adjutant Zhang did say that he would send her off. But it wasn't on the way. Moreover, it was convenient to take the train from the airport to Bo Jio's destination. Hence, after a while, Bo Jio's figure appeared at the ticket booth of the Jiang City subway, which was known as the most crowded place in the country. However, Bo Jio had indeed forgotten one thing. Jiang City was different from the Fifth Avenue in Tokyo. Animals weren't allowed on the train. But they were already here. The young man raised his eyebrows. With a lollipop in his mouth, he unzipped his jacket and stuffed Princess into his arms, wrapping her up. There was nothing wrong with wearing thick winter clothes. The main thing was that even though Princess was a fat cat, she wasn't very big. Fortunately, the subway only checked the bag, there was no full body scan. But along the way, there were already quite a number of people watching her. In this day and age, even men could get pregnant? Bo Jio lifted the cat higher as more and more people sized her up. Don't think that the princess was very obedient, because if she moved, the young man would definitely threaten her by her ear. Shave the cat's fur. This world didn't care about cat rights. The princess was depressed, very depressed. Bo Jio reached out to caress its ears. The girl beside her watched as Bo Jio boarded the train. She had wanted to take another train, but changed her route instantly. Chapter 633. That's right, the girl was a Spade fan, the type that had been playing for years. If she hadn't seen her big Spade, she could confidently say that she had become a Spade fan because of the youngster's beautiful skills and techniques, not because of his looks. After seeing him, he was really handsome. She wanted to call her friends over, but at the same time, She knew that not prying into Big Spade's privacy was the best way to protect the youngster. Hence, he stood beside the young man silently. All he wanted was to get a little closer. Truly liking someone seemed to be like this, always making the other party feel comfortable, not necessarily doing something to let the other party know. But why was her Big Spade's stomach so bulging? And why was the bulge moving upwards? Perhaps noticing the gaze from the side, the young man looked up. Princess followed the zipper that the young man had unzipped for her, revealing her little head. On her head were pure white cat ears that were still moving. That scene was so cute that it could make people have a nosebleed. Especially when the youngster raised his hand to adjust his collar, not covering it, and pulled on his wristband as if nothing had happened. He looked really cool. But Big Spade, you're going to be skewered. The girl really wanted to laugh. Bojio seemed to have sensed the commotion. She turned and placed a finger on her lips, gesturing for the girl to keep quiet. Just pretend you didn't see anything. All right. The girl lowered her voice. Can I tell you that I'm a Spade fan and I like you a lot? Bojio felt that her life was a cheat. Wherever she went, she would meet fans. The unexpected answer made her pause. On the other hand, the cat in Bojio's arms started to react. It started to bristle with an expression that said, "How dare you cheat on me behind my back? Are you tired of living, you stupid human?" Bojio didn't reply. She forced herself to suppress it. She held the cat with one hand and pressed its head down with the other. Indeed, she was too busy. The more the girl watched, the more she wanted to laugh. Bojio wasn't good at communicating with fans, so she used Princess to act cute the entire time. But the princess really didn't seem like a tomcat. Why did it seem like it was risking its life when it saw a woman? If it weren't for her powerful threat, the princess would have blown her up too. To be honest, it was too dangerous for the Almighty to raise such a cat. It could even smell a woman dressed as a man. Could it be a police cat? The two chatted for a while. Fortunately, this was a topic that the youth was good at. For example, games. Student Gio had a way of talking about games. When he heard that the girl was playing as a tank, he immediately gave a few words of advice. When you're playing, pay attention to whether there are any ranged attackers behind you. If there are, don't be afraid. Both of you can charge forward. If the opponent attacks you, you won't lose any HP. Once you're ready, it's very easy to kill the opponent's half HP. If you're good at playing, then pay attention to your positioning, how to dodge and attack. Practice the reaction speed of your fingers, avoid the opponent's attack, and hit the opponent's fragile DPS first. Time ticked by as the young man spoke. Finally, Bojio was about to alight. The girl tugged at the youth's sleeves, her eyes shining. National competition, please do your best. All right. Bojio smiled brightly. She stuffed one hand into her pocket, the other holding the cat as she walked into the crowd. This day had finally arrived. Chapter 634. Countless cameras were installed in the room. All the gaming platforms were ready to go, ready to broadcast live at any time. The field control held the loudspeaker in his hand and shouted until his mouth was dry. He finally stopped to drink a glass of water. This was different from the previous regional competition. What did the national competition mean? It meant that from now on, every one of them would be known by the people who played the game. Even the pictures of some MVP players would be broadcast all day and become the advertising spokespersons of some gaming companies. This match had determined the fate of many people for a long time. It was like a celebrity talent show, but different from a celebrity talent show. Because their success or failure depended on the team. Because their original intention hadn't changed. They didn't want to have any regrets. They wanted to be recognized, and they wanted to fight side by side with their teammates. 7:30 in the morning. Shui Yaoyao prepared everything and went downstairs. She thought that she had never faced the gaze of her neighbors so calmly. All the sarcasm and malicious misunderstandings. At that moment, it didn't seem important. She wanted to go on a date that belonged to her youth. Just the thought that she still had a group of teammates ignited her blood. There seemed to be a kind of person, that kind of existence, that could become your strength. For example, Her Highness Jiao. Even though her mother married into the Jiang family, Shui Yaoyao's travel schedule didn't change. It took half an hour to run from home to the competition venue. She adjusted her watch, put on her uniform, and stepped on the sidewalk. Yunhu and Lin Feng appeared together. They got out of a Land Rover, each carrying a pure black shoulder bag, looking very handsome. Feng Shang came earlier than others because his brother Feng Yi had to lead the fan group into the venue. And Han Susu's thoughts were on this. She had met some Spade fans before, and now she had feelings for them, so it was convenient to talk about this kind of thing. Actually, at the beginning, Han Susu went to find Sister Turtle. After all, Sister Turtle was recognized as the leader of Spade fans. She even had contact with the officials and was recognized by them. As long as she conquered the officials, everything else would be easy. She told Sister Turtle about her feelings for Spade Z. Sister Turtle sent a hug icon. It's the same for everyone. Han Susu had chatted with Sister Turtle more than once, so it was convenient to talk again. In the past, she thought she liked Spade Z too much and wanted to know a lot about him. But even her brother couldn't ask her out. This time, she wanted to ask Sister Turtle to include her in the official fan group to support the live event. Sister Turtle was also busy and sent a message. I need the official list of the members. Han Susu coaxed and pestered, but it was to no avail. The other party's attitude remained the same. What a tough rock. He didn't even know how to be flexible. Why was he so difficult to approach? He wasn't like the Spade fans she had interacted with previously. Han Susu had learned her lesson from Sister Turtle, so she began to think of other ways. Finally, 3 people told her what the itinerary was like. With that, all the preparations were done. Then he found his own people and the 4 Spade fans to head to the competition venue. Let's first talk about the on-site screening. Although the fans were organized by the officials, there were audience members who could buy tickets to enter the venue. Han Susu made use of this opportunity to bring her people into the venue. She wanted to see if the youth could still maintain his composure when he was questioned by the crowd. Chapter 635. If you didn't like it before, then he wouldn't have become a terrifying existence. Some people always had the ability to misinterpret things. If she couldn't get anything in return, then the other party must have let her down. Moreover, she did not need to say anything when she arrived at the venue. The people she brought were enough to heat up the venue. Looking around, Han Susu brought her people to sit outside the Spade fan group, waiting for the contestants to enter the stadium. Every team had their own resting area. After Feng Yi arranged the Supreme Alliance fans, he came to the rest area, a sly smile on his face. It's time for the last time. Are you all here? Of course. Lin Feng smiled. He was dressed in a handsome black uniform and placed his arm on Yunhu's shoulder. Yunhu remained silent, but his eyes shone with a different light than usual. Feng Shang was still stuttering. Captain isn't here yet. Feng Yi stilled. He had come early to inform everyone that Qin Mo wouldn't be appearing in the competition for the next 15 days. But it was one thing to think it through, and another thing to say it. Because the war was imminent, Almighty Qin's departure would definitely affect the team's morale. At that moment he heard a swoosh. The black skateboard smashed open the wooden door, and the youth's handsome figure and shiny silver hair appeared. Captain isn't here, but Captain's cat is. With that, Bojo pulled down the zipper, revealing a pair of majestic cat faces. Meow. Let me introduce you, Princess. Bojo smiled faintly. It's to supervise everyone. The princess wanted to explode, so she raised her tail. Bojo pressed her fingers. Princess means that it represents captain, and I'm honored to be everyone's vice captain. In the future, everyone can call me Little Captain. Using Baby Feng's words, I'll lead you to destroy people and fly. Lin Feng was stunned for a moment. Then he reached out and caressed the cat's head. He purposely avoided asking about Qin Mo and said in a low voice, Female cat? Meow. A male. Bojo smiled faintly. Male? He's a male, what princess? Lin Feng was shocked. Bojo arched a brow. You have to ask the Almighty. Lin Feng shook his head. Indeed, we mortals can't understand Captain's hobby. Everyone had a tacit understanding not to ask about his whereabouts. Perhaps this was the Supreme Alliance. Some questions would become a burden to the youth if he asked, so he decided not to ask. Wuxia had been through a lot. He knew very well what it was like for a team to face the National League without their captain. He also understood what the young man who took over the position of vice-captain would have to shoulder in the future. Spitting out the cigarette in his mouth, Wuxia walked over and extended his hand. "Vice-captain, are you ready to take us to destroy them? What do you think?" The youngster held the cat in one hand and stretched out the other. Supreme Alliance had always had a tacit understanding. They are not perfect. In fact, because of their unique playstyles, everyone had flaws in the game. Among them, there were even 2 rookies who had never seen a national competition. Some of them came from the most remote mountain villages in the county. However, this did not affect their cohesiveness. Everyone held out their hands. Layer after layer stacked on top of each other, with a snow-white fat cat in the middle. Chapter 636. That lounge became the place where everyone dreamed of setting sail. In the arena, all the cameras were set and ready, just waiting for the team to enter. At this moment, all the fans stood up, surrounding both sides of the road to show their support. On the Spade fans' side, there was a huge banner. Under the banner was a beautiful mature woman, standing tall and straight. She looked to be in her 30s, with medium-length brown curly hair draping down her sides. She had a pair of large eyes and was dressed in a professional dress, giving off a sense of security just by standing there. The other Spade fans were adorable, stretching their necks out. They were the quietest among all the fans, but their eyes were shining brightly. Finally, someone walked out from the other side. All the lights gathered, forming a horizontal line. There was a total of 11 people, dressed in their uniforms, looking like a commander from Star Trek, exuding a handsome aura. But this time, Wuxia was the one leading the team. The youngster had black eyes and silver hair, carrying a white cat in her arms. Even though she wasn't tall, she gave off an incomparably sharp aura. In an instant the crowd erupted. The support began. The live stream started, a sea of red. However, just as Wuxia led the team into the arena, a person suddenly rushed out, splashing the coke in his hand at the youngster. A person suddenly rushed out and splashed the coke in his hand at the young man. A gay treating his fans like this, I'm really speechless. No one had expected such a turn of events. Even Feng Yi froze, his mind blanking out. Sister Turtle was standing far away, unable to walk over. More importantly, there were 3 other Spade fans who surrounded the youngster. "Let me ask you, we like you so much, why did you?" No one bothered to listen to what they said. It was all in public. This kind of questioning was infinitely magnified and recorded on the camera. The youngster stood there, water droplets dripping down her short black hair, and onto her clothes. Her smoky makeup was slightly damp, with so many people watching and so many cameras. It was such a pathetic scene. The true Spade fans stood up instantly. Their agitated gazes turned into heartache. The youngster had never been treated in such a manner. The white cat was still nestled in her arms. The cameras were anticipating the youngster's loss of control. Han Susu blended in with the crowd, watching the scene. Surprisingly, the young man didn't lose control of himself. He didn't even grab the man's collar and cripple him like before. It wasn't because she was kind, but because she knew how important this competition was, so important that she had to endure it. The cola was still dripping. Wuxia raised her hand and pressed her silver hair down. She looked like a Greek god who had stepped into the arena. Her slender legs were dressed in a black uniform, and the corners of her lips were lifted slightly. Even though she was in a sorry state, she was still arrogant and tempting. "Do you like me?" The youngster arched a brow, asking the 3 fans. The fan felt wronged. "Think about it yourself. How did we support you? What happened to you in the end?" Chapter 637. Baby Feng clenched his hands. He held back the words that were about to come out. He took a step forward. Both Lin Feng and Yin, whose eyes were deep. Shui Yaoyao wished she had a piece of tissue in her hand, so that she could wipe the stuff off the youngster's face. Even from afar, she could see the heartache of the Spade fans. In fact, protection was relative. No one would be able to hold back when they saw the person they liked being treated like that. The Spade fans felt heartache and really wanted to retaliate. But at this moment, Sister Turtle stepped forward to block. Let him have a good match. This is the National League. We all know how long they have been preparing. There are fans of the other Supreme Alliance and not just Spade fans here. Let them see our support, Supreme Alliance. Victory. Their voices weren't loud, but it was a rallying cry. Unknowingly, under such circumstances, some of the topics that the media was prepared to publish couldn't be published. For example, Spade Z being questioned by his fans because of his sexual orientation. Is such an esports player still worthy of our love? Both topics couldn't be used anymore. The youngster didn't swallow the insult, but he didn't attack either. All of this was because of him. He had to win this match. Otherwise, how could he live up to everything that had happened in the past? How could he live up to those pairs of expectant eyes? How could he live up to his love for esports? There were cameras that scanned the youngster's face. Unknowingly, even though his gaze had never changed, there was an aura. The youngster's face was still stained with cola, but he stood straight, one hand in his pocket, the other holding the white cat, sitting in the competition area. The cameras couldn't capture the rest of the people, but they could clearly hear a wave of discussion. With Sister Turtle there to control the situation, there wasn't much conflict. The measures taken were to get some people to leave the arena. Of course, it was still a grievance. But some people forgot that there was no love in this world that would be questioned by everyone. It was a pity that this love was wasted. Perhaps even they didn't understand how it had turned out this way when they really liked him. This was growing up. Whether it was towards those who used to truly like Spadesy or Spadesy himself. We always had to go through deep and painful training to grow up step by step, to become invincible and indestructible. Alright everyone, look here, look here. This time, the commentator's style had clearly changed. How should I put it? That person was a little girly. As a commentator, I just want to ask, where did Almighty Chin go? Did my eyes deceive me? Spade Z became the vice captain? I say, Supreme Alliance, didn't you choose the captain based on his looks? Sigh, you should have said so earlier. I should have applied for the job too. These words instantly drew a round of boos. However, it was enough to show the skill of the commentator. He had successfully attracted the audience's attention to the match. Chapter 638. I love Spade Z's handsomeness when he fights alone. Why is he fighting a team battle this time? This seems to be the first time Spade Z is fighting a team battle. I'm a little excited. I believe all the fans here are feeling the same way. Let's wait and see. The shoutcaster finished speaking. The other shoutcaster agreed. Let's wait and see. The sharp contrast between the shoutcasters added a lot of fun to the competition. The opposing team was also a respectable opponent. The two sides started fighting. First, it was a 1v1. Yin, who was alone. His playing style was like his character, steady and full of knives. In the end, he won the first round with 1 kill against 3. 2v2, Fengshang and Yin Wuyao's team. This was a combination no one had expected. After all, Fengshang was still a newbie. But Bojio didn't think so. This was the initial phase, a good chance to train the newbies. Both Fengshang and Shui Yaorao had to adapt to the rhythm of the National League as soon as possible. This way, they wouldn't have to cram at the last minute. Fengshang indeed didn't have much experience in the professional league. But no matter what, he was a famous RMB player in Zone C of Hero. Perhaps many people didn't think that there was anything to be afraid of when he joined the professional league halfway through. But they forgot something. Fengshang's gaming time and experience wasn't any less than anyone else. The opposing team probably thought that Fengshang was the easiest target to attack, and wanted to ambush him from the bushes. Unexpectedly, Fengshang's gaming instincts told him that there was an 80% chance that there was someone there. He first used a big move into the bushes, and then retreated swiftly. Both of them drank half a bottle of HP at the same time. Yin Wuyao was playing as an assassin. He was originally in the vicinity, and now that the opportunity had come, He sneaked in and attacked. He locked onto one of them. When Feng Shang saw Yin Wuyao, he moved back to his original position. The two of them instantly formed a team on the left and right. The next second, a sound effect was heard. Oh, they won. This was undoubtedly a reversal of the situation. They thought they would lose. In the end, the opponent neglected the number of deaths and died for the third time. With only one person left, there was no way they could resist Yin Wuyao and Feng Shang. Finally, team battle. 5v5. Someone shook his head. Even though Supreme Alliance won both matches and the team battle isn't important anymore, I still want to say that just from this 5v5 match, the chances of Supreme Alliance winning aren't high. Why? Almighty Qin's absence is a fatal blow to Supreme Alliance's lineup. You have to know that the most important thing in a 5v5 is the team's compatibility. In other words, a team has to have assassins, sorcerers, support, and tanks. Anyone who has seen Spadesy's results would know that he is an assassin. Lin Feng is also an assassin. With two assassins in a team, without a sorcerer, the chances of winning aren't high. You have to understand that this is the National League, not like the wild games where you can casually take a kill. The opponents are strong too, so this is destined to be a losing battle. If Almighty Qin is here, there won't be a problem because Almighty Qin is an all-rounder. He can handle whatever the team lacks. The man didn't finish his words. A notification sound rang out from the big screen above. Spadesy Sorcerer. Chapter 639. Did Spadesy practice as a sorcerer while he was preparing for the match? Even if he did, it hasn't even been 5 days. He's at a disadvantage playing a character he's not familiar with. Regardless, let's watch. The sound of discussion from the audience was not soft. It was a 5v5 team battle. Bojio sat in the middle, dressed in her uniform with a white cat on her knees. Shui Yaoyao and Lin Feng sat on her left and right. Coco was there as well, playing the support role. But for some reason, such a lineup still made people feel a little worried. When the match starts, regardless of how many players there are in the middle lane, I'll be alone. Bojio instructed in a low voice. Yaoyao, you'll play as the archer and take the bottom lane. The rest of you, go to the top lane. Lin Feng, you'll fight in the jungle at the bottom lane. Don't worry about anything else, just pay attention to the bushes. Now, put on your headphones and switch on the mic. After Bojio finished speaking, everyone put on their headphones, their eyes glued to the screen. Every side profile was filled with a different kind of youth. Such a cool scene was very suitable to be displayed on the big screen. Black combat uniform, delicate and pretty eyebrows. Everyone's posture when choosing their skills was very uniform. And they all pressed the enter key with a crisp sound. Swoosh. The special effects sounded, officially entering the game. The fans outside the arena tightened their grip on the cola bottles in their hands. It's really nerve-wracking, isn't it, fangirls? Come, let's talk about some technical issues. If they split into 3 lanes, the sorcerer would usually take the middle lane. But Spadesy is used to killing and might not be able to adapt to the sorcerer role. This will be the crux of the match. The archer on the bottom lane is important too. If they aren't strong in the early stages, they won't be able to keep up in the later stages. There are indeed many loopholes in Supreme Alliance. Why do you say that? Loopholes? The archer is a newbie. It should be easy to attack her. If I was their team, I would arrange for 2 to take the middle lane, 2 to take the bottom lane, and the other to defend the top lane. Regardless of whether they hit Shui Yaoyao or Spadesy, they would be able to take the first kill and complete the first kill. F***CK, it's really as you said, they are going to take the middle lane and bottom lane in pairs. This is going to be interesting. In the game, Coco hesitated when he saw someone taking the middle lane. Bojio's voice came through the earpiece. Continue attacking. Coco was obedient, but he was worried that Bojio wouldn't be able to hold on. This was indeed the standard of the National League. I know mages don't have much health. The other side sent an assassin and a tank to charge straight at the middle lane. This is a good chance. Hide in the bushes. I'll use a big move to trap Spadesy while you use your big move to kill him. This strategy was most effective against mages. In a team battle, a tank's ultimate skill could directly interrupt a mage's ultimate skill. Moreover, mages had low HP, so if a tank managed to crouch down, they would definitely lose half their HP. In addition, the assassin's ultimate skill, 1 second, could directly reduce the mage's HP to critical. If the mage were to counterattack, it would definitely be enough to kill. On the other side, the vice leader played as a tank, and was very particular about his positioning. He stood in the middle lane, silently waiting for his big move to attract Spades's attention. Chapter 640. On the big screen, everyone could see the scene clearly. Unlike the players in the game, they could only see the status of their own team. Hence, when she controlled the ice blade to move forward, every Spadez fan's heart skipped a beat. Even the shoutcaster's expression changed. Everyone knew that Spadez was definitely going to die this time. But at this moment, Wuxia paused, releasing a freezing skill towards her lower right side. Then she walked back to the defense tower. This series of actions was unexpected. Why is Spadez releasing skills so randomly? Can he really play like that? His opponent is in front, and he's attacking towards the right. Has he not mastered the skill? Han Susu hadn't been chased out since she hadn't caused any trouble, which meant that she was still in the audience. But due to the incident just now, it wasn't suitable for her to stay among the Spade fans. In order to avoid being discovered, she shifted to the left side, blending into Coco's team since they were closer. Coco's fans were younger and didn't know much about the game. A small portion of them liked Coco because he was cute and adorable. That was why she said those words. Han Susu's eyes shifted. I like the entire Supreme Alliance team and their playing style, but Spades's way of doing things is problematic. He clearly can't do it himself, but he still wants to take the middle lane alone. His unique style is really unbearable. What if the team loses because of him? Sigh, how should I put it? He can still play solo, but as the vice-captain, he might harm Supreme Alliance. For the sake of Supreme Alliance, I won't say much. Coco's fans were more composed and didn't join Han Susu in mocking him. But from the looks of it, Han Susu knew that if he didn't join her in mocking now, he might not be able to keep his composure in the future. His expression revealed that this small mine was buried and would definitely explode in the future. It was a pity that her calculations were wrong. Coco was a professional player after all. How could his fans be noobs? One of the girls swept her a glance. You're a Spade fan, aren't you? Why did he come to our side? Also, sis, let me give you a reminder. Do you know why Spadez shot an arrow into the bushes? It was to guard against an ambush. This is basic knowledge. How can you watch the game if you don't understand? He really didn't understand. How could someone treat their idol like this? Why do you look like an anti-fan? Han Susu's face darkened. She was thinking about how to smooth things over. But the girl wasn't a fan of Spadez. She didn't pay much attention to Han Susu and focused on the competition. In fact, every normal person was watching the competition. Only an abnormal person would pay attention to other things and attempt to create some contradictions. After all, Han Susu's family was in the business world. She knew how to communicate with people and what kind of people to target. There were some people that she couldn't incite. However, there were some people who could use money or emotions to make others lose their judgment and attack others. This was the subtlety of how to conduct oneself. On the screen, Spadez was almost in danger more than once. During the third round, Wuxia had lost half of her HP. This was the most heart-wrenching part of Spadez fans. Chapter 641. However, there was one thing that not only the fans but also the opposing team members had overlooked. On the other hand, the feminine commentators' eyes lit up. I understand. Understand what? The audience didn't have time to listen to the following explanation. On the screen, Spadez waved his arm, forming a huge silver rain formation around him. That person was standing in the middle of the rain formation. The two big moves of the opposing team were gone, all in the middle of the rain formation. To Spadez, the rain was just rain. But to the opponent, it was a blade. Let's go. The opposing vice-captain was on the verge of death. He thought that he could at least let the assassin leave first. But how could the youngster let them go? Lin Feng. It was a low voice that could be heard by the audience through the earphones. Here, come on, little spade. Let's fight our revolutionary cooperation. That's right. It was cooperation. Lin Feng, who had finished clearing the jungles, was already near the middle lane. He took the opportunity to flank up. So what if he crossed the tower? He could just jump back after killing the opponent with low HP. Instantly. Only 2 words appeared on the screen: K. Oh. First kill. A first kill that no one had expected. The audience's uproar almost lifted the roof of the venue. Someone was swinging his baton, making loud banging noises. But it wasn't over yet. Until the second sound was heard. Double kill. Beautiful. The shoutcaster couldn't help but slap the table. Quick. 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 Let's take a look at the replay. The other shoutcaster was still brooding. What did you mean when you said you understood? Why did Spadesy choose to be a solo mid? Other than the fact that he needs to develop quickly, he can also hold back the opponent's main tank and main attacker. He can also buy time for Lin Feng to gain experience. Once the opponent's tank's big move is exhausted, he can form a rain spell. And it's obvious that he didn't do it randomly. It's because Lin Feng is nearby, so he can kill him in time. You mean? The other shoutcaster didn't even dare to think about that guess. The feminine shoutcaster covered his face, extremely bashful. This isn't his idea, it's my big spades. It's fine if he doesn't make a move, but once he makes a move, he has to make a double kill. After hearing the shoutcaster's words, in an instant, the viewership of the live stream reached its peak. That was not all. The 2 of them had even taken down the defense tower in the middle lane. They were so fast that they could feel the blood flowing in their veins heating up. This was undoubtedly a feast for the eyes. Coco's fans gave Han Susu a look, letting her experience it for herself. Han Susu's heart was ablaze. Her purpose in coming here was to embarrass that person. On one hand, she didn't expect Spade fans to be so protective of that person. On the other hand, he had been splashed, how could he win? The scene from earlier appeared on the big screen again. The camera pulled back, and the young man's calm face was reflected on it. He was handsome, fair, and a little too handsome. Fengyi looked at this scene. In reality, no one knew where the youth had grown. Endure silently for the sake of the team. We aren't kind enough, we don't know how to deal with people, and we even have a fatal flaw in our character, but we can grow into what the important person needs. Chapter 642. Sorcerer players knew that as long as the foundation was good, the formation would be stronger in the later stages. Hero was a popular game because it was popular. It was also because it was a game that required you to understand a lot in order to play well. Teamwork was crucial. After taking down a defense tower, Bojiu and Lin Feng didn't rush forward. Instead, they crossed the wilderness and headed towards the bottom lane. It was too late for the enemy to retreat. Shui Yaoyao used a big stun move. Lin Feng went for the kill. Bojiu used another freeze. Shui Yaoyao took the chance to kill. KO. Handsome. Indeed handsome. Once the battle started, the rhythm of the battle quickened. The opposing attacker and tank revived and headed towards the bottom lane, along with the archer in the wilderness. The 3 of them encircled Supreme Alliance from the left and right to destroy Supreme Alliance. Since Spadesy was left with half his HP, this time they wouldn't waste their big move. They had to break Spadesy's rain spell. Bojiu didn't intend to fight them at all. She released a freeze skill and ran into the bushes, avoiding the assassin and returning to the tower. Shui Yaorao and Lin Feng would definitely lose HP, but it didn't matter because Bojiu was at the bottom of the tower. Since Bojiu was below the tower, with one healed, the other 2 would be back to full health. D***. We didn't catch him. Spadesy doesn't seem like a newbie when playing sorcerer. The opposing captain's voice deepened. From now on, we can't be careless. The information we received was wrong. Since we can't catch him, we'll go to the top lane to catch someone else. Lu, stay invisible and go to the top lane. Alright. The assassin named Lu was fast. No one could see his shadow as he advanced. The revived player guarded the middle lane. The other two were at the bottom lane. The other player was fighting with Coco on the top lane. The moment Bojio saw that the assassin was gone, her gaze sharpened. Coco retreat. But it was too late. Usually the assassin's big move was the big move when he was close to you. Coco's HP wasn't full, and with that attack, his HP fell to a critical level. Ah. No. The fans couldn't help but scream. But even so, it couldn't change the ending. With a loud thud, Coco fell heavily to the ground. The other Supreme Alliance teammate wanted to turn back. However, there was still a mage in front of him. With such a powerful spell, he could only dodge and run. Some younger fans couldn't accept Coco's death. How could this be? How did my Coco die just like that? In the beginning, the regret that came from liking him was nothing. Han Susu seized the opportunity and sighed. Isn't it because the main damage output of the team is protecting Spade Z at the bottom lane? Sigh, this kind of competition is really disappointing. This sentence successfully made some of Coco's fans hate Spade Z. Why didn't you save my Coco? What's the meaning of using all the attack power to protect Spade Z? Are you just going to watch your teammate die? At the same time, doubts were raised. Coco switched on his mic. I'm sorry, Vice Captain. I was careless. You told me to pay attention to the assassin and told me to retreat. I was too late. Chapter 643. After all, it wasn't a problem between teammates. How could he not die in a game? Unless he was as perverted as Almighty Qin. Coco didn't think much of it. After reviving, he set off in high spirits. However, Han Susu didn't give up, adding, how cold. Coco apologized to him, but why did he say that? He seems rather nice to Shui Yaoyao. The new member is protecting the new member. The fans started to resent Coco's death. A fat woman isn't as important as our Coco. I don't know what Spadesy is thinking. Maybe there's something going on between them. Spadesy better correct his attitude. Otherwise, we won't do it if we lose the competition. Some fans were curious. Their idol had already explained the situation clearly. Why would he continue to listen to others' instigation and misinterpret their meaning? Every commander in a game knew that on the battlefield, it was important to be concise and have more plans. In reality, the more they played, the more Bojio understood the burden the Almighty had as a captain. She only played in the wilderness and rarely cooperated with anyone. When playing in the wilderness, she just had to think of her own strategy. There wasn't a need to think so much. Even when she had commanded before, she had used attacking characters. This team control was a true test of the team's cohesiveness. Especially when everyone was in the team. Tank, go forward. Yao Yao and Coco, run a little, one behind me, the other on the left to watch the ambush. Lin Feng, once we start, go invisible and attack the sorcerer at the back. Alright. During a team battle, it was important to attack first, and then attack. Killing the back was a common practice for assassins, but it depended on technique as well. But this was the camp that stood out. Coco's fans only looked at the surface. What I want to say is it interesting to have everyone surround him. Han Susu added immediately, he's just a vice captain. If he's so capable, he can fight at the front. What's the point of being stuck in the middle? Is Spadesy afraid of death? He wants his teammates to charge forward. This was a skillful way of saying it because if one Supreme Alliance member died, Han Susu could say that he died in Spadesy's place. The team members wearing headphones couldn't hear a single word of what was said on the field. On the screen, the young man's gaze was calm and composed. His hands were already in position on the keyboard. With a single fight, he crouched down on the opponent's archer. With Coco's support, the opponent lost half of his HP and was stunned on the spot. Of course, in a team battle, they wouldn't die so easily. The enemy was definitely going to counterattack. However, the opponent's tank realized that he was in trouble after crouching down with a big move. It was indeed terrible. Because at this moment, Spadesy took a step forward and froze the shooter. At the same time, the rain came. There were a total of 3 people in the formation, an archer, a support, and a tank. This pitter-patter rain could cause everyone in the center of the magic circle to lose HP and slow down. Sadly, the enemy didn't have any more big moves to break her formation. The tank had used his big move, and the archer couldn't use it in time. Only the opponent's sorcerer could interrupt Spadez's big move. The sorcerer used his big move, sweeping across like a fireball. It was a pity Supreme Alliance still had a tank. He moved forward firmly, buying time for his teammates and allowing Lin Feng to appear and kill them. The opponent's sorcerer lost half his HP. Moreover, a sorcerer without his big move was most afraid of an assassin's close combat. Chapter 644. Team Wipe. When these two words appeared, the live audience was practically boiling with excitement. Without any obstacles, Supreme Alliance was like a whirlwind of offense. Everyone was in the middle lane. It was easy for 5 people to destroy the defense tower, even though Supreme Alliance's tank was almost out of HP. But don't forget, Bojiu had healing abilities. The effective heal was to restore the HP of the player and the party members around them. All 5 of them were healing at the same time, and it would take time for the other party to resurrect. This amount of time was enough for Supreme Alliance to take down the opponent's city. When the pieces of the city fell, the sky was filled with silver sparks, showing Supreme Alliance's absolute victory. Bojiu was the first to remove her earpiece, her silver hair fluttering. It was such a cool action that was captured by the camera. Another burst of uncontrollable screams rang out. Even the shoutcaster was excited. Replay. Field control, please give me a replay. It was a beautiful team battle, wasn't it? Yes, the sorcerer's calculations are good. I never expected Spadez to be so good as a sorcerer. With a rain spell, the opponent couldn't retaliate at all. So you think Spadez is the MVP of this match? Definitely. There's no doubt that such an outstanding team control player will be the MVP. This is the first time I agree with your point of view. Alright, friends in the audience, the replay is here. Let's watch the most exciting scene in slow motion. It was common knowledge in team battles to use the tank to attack the front and the assassin to kill the back. However, when everyone looked again, they would notice Spadez's movement. He moved slightly to the left, stopped the freeze, and then released his rain spell. This move was the key to winning the team battle, and it had to be said that his control was beautiful. This kind of playstyle is enough for him to compete with those who play sorcerer all year round. Spadez is definitely worthy of being the vice-captain of Supreme Alliance. There was nothing more convincing and exciting than a post-match analysis. When the youngster took off his headphones, Lin Feng pounced forward, wrapping his arms around her neck. He rammed his fist into her silver hair. You're good, you're handsome. Especially when you cooperate with me, you're even more handsome. Coco also pressed forward with the brightest smile on his face. Vice-captain, we won. It wasn't just the players in the arena, even Yin Hu and Yin Wuyao joined in. The youngster was at the bottom, her forehead pressed against the computer, one hand protecting the cat. Hey, that's enough, my hairstyle. Don't worry, Your Highness Jiao, you're still handsome. Shui Yaoyao smiled. Even though they weren't there, the audience could feel the different feelings between Supreme Alliance and the Alliance. Coco's fans, who were originally dissatisfied, couldn't say anything after seeing this scene. Since their Coco liked Spadez so much, it wouldn't be good for them to say anything. It was a scene of jubilation. This was not what Han Susu wanted to see. She stood there with her hands clenched and her eyes darkened. Chapter 645. That tone and the surrounding gazes caused Han Susu, who had never been mocked before, to turn red and green. After all, it was a slap to her face. Han Susu couldn't take it anymore, grabbing her bag and fleeing the scene. The cheers of victory continued. The MVP of the competition, the youngster, carried a white cat, his handsome side profile perfectly captured on the screen. There was a cracking sound. Through the computer. Wu Zhen threw the mouse in her hand, her eyes cold to the extreme. It wasn't because of Supreme Alliance's victory. It was because of the cat in the youngster's arms. Wu Zhen had never expected to see Princess here. Others might not know who the white cat belonged to, but Wu Zhen was clear. That person had never allowed anyone near his cat, not even she had hugged Princess. But now, Princess was in the hands of that useless young Master Fu. Wu Zhen clenched her fists tighter and tighter, her expression darkening. Until there was a knock on the door. Wu Zhen switched off the screen, standing up. She was still at work, wearing her uniform. Director Huang came, holding some documents in his hands. Li Mengran is implicated in the forum. It's dangerous. We have to investigate the culprit as soon as possible. Li Mengran is the only one who has direct contact with the forum. Go ask her about the tone of the replies and if there were any leaks. Write it down and pass it to me. In the past, before Wu Zhen was transferred over, Director Huang would always address her as Miss Wu. But it was different now. Wu Zhen was a member of the crime squad. Her work couldn't be sloppy. But it was obvious that Wu Zhen wasn't interested in such cases. She took the documents, asking, "Aren't you going to investigate Zi's case? Brother Mo, where did he go? Did he go to investigate? If he can't handle it, I can help him. Don't bother about what he does, just do your job well." Director Huang was like a weasel, keeping his mouth shut. He wouldn't divulge anything if he could. Wu Zhen felt a wave of annoyance when she heard his words. Wasn't he able to return to the crime squad because of her persuasion? But now this Director Huang. Wait a minute, Li Mengran. Wasn't she the one who said she was gay? Okay, I'll drive over now and ask all the questions I need to ask. Wu Zhen laughed, but her gaze was sinister. 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Li Mengran, who was resting at home, had just finished watching the youngster's live stream. If one thing can change a family, he had indeed done it. Mother Li's views were different from before. In the past, as long as Li Mengran wasn't doing her exercises, she would frown, regardless of the time. As long as he had some free time, he would let Li Mengran attend classes. Now she didn't care what the child did. However, there was one thing that Mother Li noticed, and that was that her daughter seemed to really like that young man. Every time before she did the exercises, her daughter would look at her phone. The people on the school's intranet had posted another photo of the young man. After reading it, his daughter continued to write questions with a smile on her face. Mother Li had also expressed that as long as she found a partner, she would agree. Chapter 646. In that instant, Mother Li's heart ached. Our Mengran is great too. I know, but it's not the type His Highness Jiu likes. Li Mengran smiled faintly. I'll continue to like him silently, not burdening him. If I'm outstanding enough in the future, I'll confess to him. Whether he accepts or rejects me, I'll be happy. Mom, do you know as long as you like him, you'll be happy? How could Mother Li not know that? She had witnessed the changes in her daughter. Such a daughter really made her feel proud as a mother. At the same time, she reflected on herself. The best way to be a parent was to grow up with their child. Hence, when Wu Zhen, who was dressed in a police uniform, came knocking on their door, they were somewhat surprised. Wu Zhen still had a smile on her face, her words appropriate. Auntie, don't worry, it's just Mengran. I'm here to understand the situation and make a statement. The police won't reveal Mengran's identity. In reality, Mother Li was no longer the same as before. As long as she could protect her daughter, she didn't care if others found out. Since she was from the police, she naturally wouldn't reject her. Wu Zhen was smart. She didn't start off with official business. Instead, she moved on to other topics such as Mengran's current situation, her mood and studies. Anyone would be willing to listen to such words. After setting the foundation, Wu Zhen revealed her true motive. Mengran, are you willing to talk about your boyfriend? His Highness Jiu. Li Mengran hadn't expected her to ask about the youngster. Her first reaction was, that has nothing to do with him. Wu Zhen arched a brow. That. What is it? Li Mengran shook her head. Nothing. Wu Zhen was a police officer. She could immediately tell that Li Mengran was trying to hide something. She placed her pen down. Mengran, you should understand that it's better to make things clear so that we can solve the problem. Actually, there's something I've always wanted to ask. Since he's your boyfriend, why are you calling him His Highness Jiu? That doesn't seem normal. Li Mengran remained silent. Wu Zhen continued. Also, he seemed to have known about you in advance. As your boyfriend, didn't he take any precautions? When we caught the teacher, he kept mumbling that it must be the little brat who harmed him, and that he should have paid more attention. Who was the little brat referring to? Your boyfriend? This matter really has nothing to do with Highness Jiao. Li Mengran panicked. Don't make things difficult for His Highness Jiao. Back then, His Highness Jiao only became my boyfriend because he thought that at least those beasts would have some reservations. Wu Zhen looked at Li Mengran, her eyes narrowing. Is that true? It really is. Li Mengran shifted her gaze to the left. In order to catch up to that person, Wu Zhen had specially learned how to use micro-expressions during interrogations. Li Mengran was obviously hiding something. Because her gaze to the upper left had already betrayed her. However, Wu Zhen knew that it was useless to continue asking. It was obvious that Li Mengran was very protective of the gay. It was better not to ask anymore, lest this person figured out her intentions. But there was one thing that Wu Zhen was almost certain of. Chapter 647. Moreover, it was related to this incident. After asking about the forum, Wu Zhen's mind wasn't on it. Once she was out of the Li family's house, she called Han Susu. The moment Han Susu picked up the call, she started complaining to Wu Zhen. Why are there so many people protecting such a gay? I feel disgusted just looking at him. I don't like him either. Wu Zhen lowered her voice. But don't worry, he'll be out of luck soon. Han Susu's eyes lit up. Sister Wu, did you think of a good idea? It's related to my work. It's not convenient for me to tell you now. Are there any problems on your side? Wu Zhen asked as she opened the car door. Han Susu chuckled lightly. What problems can there be? Some of his Spade Z fans still like me since I supported him from the start. He doesn't know how to be grateful, he'll regret it one day. Some people are indeed destroyed by arrogance. Wu Zhen flipped through the information in her hands. Han Susu was still furious. It's fine, we can make a fuss on the official Weibo. Anyway, the Spade Z fans I interacted with are feeling aggrieved. It's better to be careful, don't let anyone find out, Wu Zhen instructed. Han Susu said. Don't worry, there are still my friends there. They are all on my side. In that case, I'll tell you what I have on my side. If possible, I might be able to capture the gay and keep him there for a few days. Wu Zhen smiled. Han Susu was delighted. If that's the case, that would be great. That way, everyone would be able to see what kind of person Spadesy was. But at this moment, Supreme Alliance's second match was about to begin. Bojio didn't have time to think about anything else. Once again, she deployed the formation and commanded the battle calmly in the face of danger. That day, all the Spade Z fans could only see the youngster, wearing a black headset, giving out simple orders, perfect maneuvering and positioning, playing at the highest level of a sorcerer. After the second match, it was already 6 p.m. There was an interview with an esports star. Bojio was the one Supreme Alliance had chosen. Without a choice, the youngster unzipped her uniform and pointed to her teammates. Wait for me to come back before we go for skewers. Unfortunately, no one listened to Jio in this regard. Hearing that they were going to eat, Supreme Alliance revealed their true nature. They only had meat in their eyes and didn't care about their little vice-captain. Lin Feng said straightforwardly, "Don't worry, we'll wait for you at the skewers." In other words, they would definitely go first. So when the microphone was passed to the youth, the young man was still thinking about crispy chicken bones, lamb skewers, fish tofu, baked beans, and so on. In the end, when the beautiful host asked, "Who is your favorite esports player?" the youngster said decisively, "Let's eat skewers." Excuse me? Was there any team with a player named Baokebab in an esports competition? Not only the beautiful host, but even the cameraman was dumbfounded. Cough. Fengyi coughed heavily. The young man, who was holding the cat in one hand, came back from his thoughts and smiled faintly. Is there a problem? You're the one with the problem now. Chapter 648. Was that a person's name? Fox Feng glanced at her. The beautiful host asked again. Do you have any esports players you admire? Of course. Boju smiled. Qin Mo, I admire not only his looks but also his playing style. The beautiful host laughed. Aren't you just expressing your admiration for Almighty Qin? Boju smiled but didn't reply. The beautiful host continued to ask. Throughout the match today, everyone noticed that you played a character that you don't usually play, but it was surprisingly perfect. I think everyone is very curious about when you became a mage. After all, you've always played a more aggressive character before. The day before yesterday. The two words youngster. The beautiful host paused. Can I trouble you to repeat? When did you train? The day before yesterday, the youngster replied, not forgetting to suppress Princess in his arms. The beautiful host was slightly dazed. You managed to train a character so well in 2 days? Mage. Bojo didn't mention that she had only played for 3 hours and managed to master it after 5 rounds. The beautiful host sighed. As expected of the FC King of Zone C. I believe the fans are just like me, they will look forward to your competition in the future. That was indeed the case. It was a national competition. Almost all the girls who liked to play games were infatuated with the youngster. Their peripheral products were sold out. Some dealers even scratched their heads. I've never seen a gamer more popular than a celebrity. In one night, almost the entire Jiang city saw the interview with the youngster. In the end, the silver-haired youngster stuffed one hand into his trouser pocket, the other carelessly hugging the white cat gently. He looked handsome as he looked into the camera, making people's hearts race. But under all the glamour, there was bound to be something that others didn't know. 11 p.m. The youngster finally had a proper meal. Before he finished, he fell asleep on the dining table in the living room. The princess had jumped on the table and sniffed around, trying to claw at the stupid human who was always threatening her. But when he saw the youngster's sleeping profile, he retracted his claws and started to walk proudly. On account of the fact that you fed me delicious food, this king will forgive you. The princess stomped for a while, and when she was done, she wrapped herself up into a fluffy round ball and leaned against the side of the young man's face. A man and a cat, just enough to keep each other warm. At this moment, on the other side of the earth, on the other side of the Pacific Ocean, the sunlight was very gentle. It passed through the white curtains and shone on that handsome and abstinent face. Qin, do you feel anything here? The doctor spoke in authentic English. He had blonde hair and blue eyes. His fingers pressed on the man's wrist, and his eyes observed the patient's reaction. A very pleasant word. No. I understand. The doctor wrote a few sentences in English on his notebook, then gave some instructions before leaving with his things. Qin Mo was the only one left in the ward. Dressed in a pure white hospital gown, he looked like he had walked out of a comic, a white devil, a typical military commander. Young master, do you want to take a look at the situation? Adjutant Zhang was standing beside him. He knew very well what the young master was concerned about. Unexpectedly, Qin Mo rejected her. No need, I can't control myself. Chapter 649. It was nighttime. Jiang City's mansion. Feng Shang watched as his brother placed his phone down, stuttering. Why was it Captain Qin? No. Feng Yi's eyes dimmed. It's not normal for someone to cause trouble in the arena today. I'll get someone to investigate. Feng Shang grunted heavily. Why you have to investigate? Bully my idol. No, don't let me know what they are called in-game. I know, I'll go and bully them every day. These people don't play games. Feng Yi glanced at his bunny brother. More and more people will like you in the future. Some might not like you because of your gaming skills, but because of your faces. Some might even like you because your existence can give them a topic to talk about. There are many such things, you have to get used to it. Feng Shang clenched his fists. And not used to it. Feng Yi laughed like a fox. That's true, you don't have to get used to it. You just have to play the game well, I'll handle the rest. He wasn't sure what his motive was. But it was obvious that there were a few people who were incited to the point where they couldn't tell right from wrong. Or perhaps after today's incident, they vaguely understood what was going on. But they still chose to continue being used by others, and they would still feel sympathetic towards each other. They felt wronged after hurting others. There were many of such people in real life. Usually it wouldn't change. Feng Yi didn't care about that. He just had to find the mastermind. Even as a manager, he couldn't stand to watch being splashed with coke. But after the match, the youngster said in a low voice while wearing a mask, "Don't tell Brother Mo about what happened today." Feng Yi knew very well what all this forbearance was for. For that person to focus on his hand injury, for Supreme Alliance's victory, for his teammates. If it wasn't for these most important things, the youngster would probably have dealt with it in a different way. Sometimes, when Feng Yi looked at the youngster, it was as though he was looking at the past Qin Mo. That person had walked step by step in the same manner. Doubt, ridicule, incitement, attacks, all of them had ulterior motives. It was because of these experiences that the most valuable esports player was born. Feng Yi lowered his lids, picking up another call. "Yes, I want to know who brought the fan in. There should be records." These things were not easy to investigate. Because there were too many people entering the venue. It would take a lot of time and energy to find out the truth. At this moment, it was up to the true Spade fans to unite. Feng Yi decided to meet Sister Turtle. Feng Yi considered himself so handsome that he had no friends. However, when he sat down in front of the woman, he realized that the woman in front of him did not seem to have weakened in the slightest. Moreover, that face was very beautiful. For the first time, Feng Yi felt that he didn't need to speak so clearly when talking to someone. Because as soon as he said it, the other party could almost understand everything. "President Feng, don't worry. We'll use the best way to protect our young man. We'll fully cooperate with the authorities." Feng Yi paused. "I've prepared a lot of questions." Moreover, such a strict selection method was bound to attract some disgust. Chapter 650. Ever since that day, all the Spade fans seemed to have an indescribable tacit understanding, cooperating with the officials. Even those who weren't qualified to go to the stadium would cheer for Spadesy online, because they believed that protection is mutual. Moreover, they did not want to see a second Coke splash incident. So when you really like a person, you will really feel sorry for what happened to him. The next day, when Bo Jiu found out about the incident, she hugged the white cat and recorded a message on her official Weibo. "Come, princess, say good morning to everyone." Meow. "You stupid human, if you have the guts, let me go and fight one-on-one." The young man's unique voice, coupled with the bursts of meowing, made people feel that he was full of life. Oh, my big Spade is even more handsome now. I'm going to record this and use it to wake myself up every day. It's so warm. What should I do? Am I the only one who feels like I'm about to explode from the princess's voice? Actually, I don't care about that. What I care about is why my big Spade is suddenly carrying a cat to the competition. And the cat is always around. This is a good question. Qin Fan can't help but want to say something. That should be our Almighty's cat. Cover your face. My Almighty has even let little Spade take care of his cat. I'm really not thinking about it. I just want to ask, do you even have the keys to the Qin family? When she saw the last message, she glanced towards her table instinctively. There was indeed a key on it. But it wasn't from the Qin family, it was from the Almighty's place where he lived. There was a lot of cat food there. The Almighty had said that if it wasn't enough, she could feed him. I feel like I've been stuffed with another mouthful of dog food. The gay is trying to make his presence felt again. I really don't understand why some idiots like him. Spadesy, it's time for you to face your own problems. Don't you think about why you were splashed? There were even some of your fans. Do you think a few fans aren't important? I'm here purely because I can't stand the current entry system. It's so strict. How narcissistic. Do you think anyone would want to see you? From the looks of it, the other party wasn't going to be done yet. Feng Yi was also looking at the official Weibo. He narrowed his eyes and sped up the search process. Bo Jiu was already dressed in Supreme Alliance's uniform. Honor always goes hand in hand with vilification. What we want is to be worthy of the people we need to be worthy of. For 3 whole days, Supreme Alliance was like a dark horse that charged out of a tight encirclement, killing enemies along the way and reaping great rewards. Complete victory. The 4th day. Team battle. Supreme Alliance won't win so easily this time. The shoutcaster looked at the list, giving his analysis. Another commentator asked, "What do you mean?" Chapter 651. That was indeed the case. Everyone knew that the National League would become more and more difficult as the competition progressed, because the opponents they encountered would constantly become stronger. Chen Yiguang had been using a sorcerer since the very beginning. Many people couldn't take down Galaxy because of his ace sorcerer. It was said that his positioning, skills, and control over time were extremely sensitive. Apologies. Lin Feng came down from the 2v2, his fingers clenched tightly. Galaxy was indeed strong. So strong that he couldn't keep up. I should be the one apologizing. Coco stood there, his head hanging low. If I hadn't died so quickly, I wouldn't have lost. His captain had told him a long time ago that he needed to improve. But before he could improve to a certain level, the National League had started. Coco started to seriously consider if he should do fewer live streams in the future, so that he could have more time to train his hand speed. But regardless of the reason, it couldn't be used as an excuse for his poor performance. With that, Bojio stood up, smiling faintly as she tugged at the black wrist guard on her right hand. She tilted her head and smiled. "It's fine, we'll help you win it back." She was referring to us. She wasn't referring to herself. The 5 of them stood in a line, giving off an indescribable sense of handsomeness when they walked onto the stage. It was an aura that wouldn't get tired of even after watching it many times. The shoutcasters were still shaking their heads, not having high hopes for the match. Spades's sorcerer won't be able to control Chen Yiguang. However, as soon as he finished speaking, a voice suddenly rang out. A sound effect came from the screen. Spadesy assassin. In that instant, the shoutcasters were confused. Wait a minute, shouldn't Spadesy be a sorcerer? What was going on with the assassin? A commotion broke out over at Galaxy. It seemed like the situation was out of their expectations. True Spade fans found it normal. My big Spade is an assassin, it's perfect for him. The shoutcasters were in a daze. What's wrong? Just that one sentence was enough to send a shock through everyone. That's right. How could they forget that the newcomer king of Zone C was best at using assassins? Even now, the video of Spadesy using assassins to kill 5 players was still being spread like wildfire. That was why he had no intention of playing as a mage in the first place. The youngster did not look around. Instead, he gestured to his teammates and put on the headphones with his right hand. The shoutcaster only snapped out of his daze when he heard the sound of entering the game. Anyone who used the assassin class would know that they should first kill monsters to level up, then kill people. Furthermore, using an assassin to kill someone required a certain level of skill. Chen Yiguang knew Spadesy wasn't easy to deal with. He controlled the character with his fingers, his voice low. Be careful of Spadesy's ambush. Don't worry, Captain. We'll only defend and not attack. We'll wait for you to take control later. However, that was what he said, but when it came to the real fight, you can't just defend and not attack. One of the members of the space troopers defended the tower very well. He was facing 2 enemies at once, but neither of them attacked him. His HP was running low, so he wanted to return to the city while he was safe under the tower. But that person forgot one thing. Chapter 652. On the screen, everyone could clearly see the youngster's beautiful finger technique. It was so fast that they couldn't even see it clearly. The assassin with the name Spadesy had already rushed under the opponent's tower. With a big move, he killed someone and then jumped over the wall. The music started playing. Kill. A perfect tower kill. A stunning first kill. Instantly, the crowd was in an uproar. The player who had returned to the city hadn't expected Spadesy to suddenly appear. How insane was his hand speed to reach such a level? But that wasn't the end. The figure didn't return to the city. Instead, after jumping out, he went straight for the assassin in the jungle. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Along with the exciting music, 2 huge words appeared on the screen. Double kill. Amazing. When the commentator said these 2 words, he slammed the table. His excitement was no less than that of the live audience. Everyone was requesting for the replay to be slowed down. Because when Spadesy killed the first player, his speed was too fast. Even the full-view audience couldn't figure out when the figure had started to sweep past the jungle and head for the tower. The scene made everyone's blood boil. Spadesy playing as an assassin really makes people want to become his fan. These were the shoutcaster's words. It wasn't because of anything else but the youngster's technique and maneuvers. There wasn't a single pause when he killed someone. There was only one word that could describe it. It was awesome. At this moment, Chen Yiguang started to feel more confident. He knew clearly that they wouldn't be able to win this team battle. As soon as the match started, Spadesy had already completed the first kill. It was obvious that the opponent didn't intend to take down the tower this time, choosing to sweep the entire way. Chen Yiguang wasn't sure if it was a coincidence or the youngster's plan. If it was the latter, Spadesy was terrifying. For a sorcerer, starting a battle in the jungle was his weakness. His usual calculations had to be readjusted. There were too many bushes in the jungle. It was easy to control one person, but difficult to control many. Chen Yiguang had already used his big move twice. Supreme Alliance did have casualties, but if the opponent died, they would lose 4 on their side. When he ran from the jungle to the tower, he didn't dare to lose too much HP, because it was very likely that Spadesy would cross the tower and kill him. He had never experienced such a feeling before. The current Supreme Alliance, no, it should be Spadesy, was so strong that he couldn't handle him. Without Qin Mo, they would be able to win the match. But now, Chen Yiguang realized something. After Qin Mo left, Spadesy came. The youngster with the title of Rookie King wasn't any worse than Qin Mo. Just thinking about it, Chen Yiguang's fingers were trembling. Without Qin Mo around, Supreme Alliance was already so powerful. If Qin Mo came back, how strong would Supreme Alliance be? With such a question, StarCraft lost the match. Just as the shoutcaster had said, Spadechine's plan wasn't to attack the city, but to kill everyone. Supreme Alliance won. She won so much that everyone wanted to shout, "Beautiful." On the other hand, the atmosphere in the Interstellar Alliance was a little gloomy. In order to prepare for the National League, every team had exhausted all of their efforts. No one wanted to lose. Everyone hoped that they could fight one more round. Even if it was just one more battle, it would be fine. Chapter 653. Lin Feng could understand what kind of feeling that was. Back when Supreme Alliance hadn't even made it through the regional competition, he had felt the same way. Hence, when the Galactic members walked over, they removed their headphones. Some of them were tearing up. It was obvious how much they were suppressing. Chen Yiguang was the calmest among them. He reached out to Bojio. "I hope I can meet you again in the coming year. By then, the Galactic won't be as weak as before." "I believe you." The youngster smiled. "The Galactic members are full of potential, especially Captain Qin. You are too hard to kill. If it wasn't for the revival of your teammates and the fact that I have so many people on my side, I wouldn't have been able to kill you alone. Your control is too strong." Chen Yiguang thought that he really shouldn't look at boring gossip. Spadesy was a character that all esports players had to take seriously. It had nothing to do with how unorthodox he was, because his skills were there for all to see. After the handshake, the 2 teams were supposed to return to their respective resting areas. But at this moment, Chen Yiguang wasn't satisfied. He paused and turned to the youngster. "I have a question that I would like to know the answer to. Was it a coincidence that you started the battle in the wilderness or—" "Of course it was planned." Bojio glanced over, her side profile ravishing. "The battle in the wilderness weakens the sorcerer's control to a certain extent, making it easier for the assassin to move. Captain Chen is such a strong opponent, it's only natural that we try our best to restrain him." With that, Chen Yiguang's remaining indignation vanished. because this young man was truly too strong. He was so strong that even if he lost to him, he wouldn't feel depressed. Instead, he wanted to have another exchange of blows. Chen Yiguang walked over to the member who was wiping his tears, patting his shoulders. We'll try again next year. Trust me, the Galactic will be stronger next year. MH. A team with the same beliefs. They would definitely become stronger. The youngster retracted her gaze from Chen Yiguang. The moment she lowered her head, she saw Princess looking at her with narrowed eyes. Bojiu arched a brow, suppressing him with her hands. Princess exploded into a ball. You rascal, when Master comes back, I'll definitely get him to replace you. Don't think that you can do whatever you want just because you look good. If you give me another candy, I can consider tolerating you. Without a doubt, the MVP of this match was Bojiu. 9 kills, 0 deaths, and 5 assists. In a situation where each member of the opposing team could only die 3 times. This kind of battle record was enough to make anyone's face bleed. Someone guessed, Spadesy must have switched back to his best assassin for the next match. However, the next day, the youngster chose to be a long-range shooter during the team battle. Marksman? Not a mage, not an assassin, but an archer? What kind of joke was this? However, it turned out that he wasn't joking. Even though he was playing as an archer, the young man still won the MVP of that match. Just like that, Bojiu played through all 3 characters. Finally, someone couldn't help but ask, Spadesy, don't tell us that you can play any character. The young man hugged the cat, his hands in his trouser pockets, and with a lollipop in his mouth he raised his eyebrows slightly and said, I am. After listening to the interview, the Professional Alliance's chat group exploded. One had to know that the group consisted of all the gods in the esports circle, and they wouldn't easily explode. But today was different. Holy sh*T, what's going on? Another all-rounder? Chinmo's nemesis, come out, let's have a good chat. Why is your little spade so all-rounder? Chapter 654. The Professional Alliance was messing around in the WeChat group. After all, after 7 consecutive days of competition, everyone wanted to relax. But what they didn't expect was, Chinmo really came out. MH. Just one word, calm and composed. This made the members of the various battle teams rub their eyes hard. Chen Yiguang asked, am I seeing things? Is Chinmo here? No, Yiguang, you aren't seeing things. A certain someone is really here. It was the top assassin in the country, Lin Chentao. Of course, the members of Xiangnan were also in the group, all of them top-notch players. Is Spadesy really an all-rounder? Chen Yiguang asked. Lin Chentao replied. I remember he has always been an assassin since his hand speed is the most suitable. Is Spadesy in the group? Xiangnan's vice-captain Zhao Sampang was a chatterbox. Ask him. Someone glanced at the sky. How is that possible? Have you forgotten how old the people in the group are? He's just a high school student. Hey, I'm not old. Chen Yiguang replied. I'm only 20, it's the prime of a man's life. Lin Chentao smirked. I'm 18, I'm forever 18. North of Yin Mountain. Uncle Yin, get Chinmo's nemesis to drag his little spade in. Zhao Sampang was really fat, and his greatest wish was to destroy Chinmo. Chinmo's deep eyes stared at the chat box in the group. He sat on the bed, his slender fingers moving, pulling the poker profile picture into the chat. Bojiu hadn't seen the person who had invited her, hence, she had left the group. After that, Bojiu realized who had sent it. She opened the chat window. Chinmo arched a brow, pulling her for the second time. This time, she wasn't going to leave. But she wasn't going to enter. The moment she entered, she realized the usernames in the group were extremely familiar. They were all people she would be facing in the future, and they were all godly players. Back when Feng Yi had been explaining, she had seen their information many times. If those fangirls knew that these esports gods were in the same WeChat group, they would probably go crazy. Zhao Sampang. Hi little spade, let me introduce myself. I'm the face of this group, handsome Zhao. Lin Chentao. Add 2 words in front of looks negative number. Zhao Sampeng. Lin, I'm angry. Let's fight. Come on, let's 2v1. Do you think I'm afraid of you? Zhao Sampeng replied. You're just bullying with numbers. Look at Little Spade, it's always a 1v2. We're both assassins, but why is there such a huge difference? Come Little Spade, newbie, report your measurements and sexual orientation. Bojiu cleverly avoided these 2 questions and typed with a smile. Handsome brother Zhao gave himself that title? 66666. Self-sealing is the main point, no explanation needed. Spectating forcefully. The others also came. In an instant, many people appeared. Chen Yiguang said, so you guys are here. Little brother Yiguang, big sister will tell you, big sister cut my nails especially for you, and dyed them rose red. The next time I kill you, my attack power will increase by a notch. Be careful, my baby. The person who spoke was Xiangnan's sorcerer Luo Luojiang. She was indeed beautiful, but her fighting style was savage and she specifically targeted Chen Yiguang. Chapter 655. Zhao Sampeng didn't care about the others and sent a serious emoji. I didn't expect that I would be so famous. You've heard of Little Spade before you joined the group, right? Are you treating me as the greatest opponent in your life the moment you see me? One of Qin Mo's hands hung down, the other holding the business tablet. He was just about to type something. A line of words appeared on the screen. Spadesy. I already have my biggest rival, my captain. Zhao Sampeng. You have good foresight. You have the same goal as me. Spadesy. Xiangnan's Captain Xiao, leave the group and train. Zhao Sampeng, who was caught by his boss, immediately pretended to go offline. Goodbye, Little Spade from Qin Mo's family. Let's discuss how to defeat him in the future. Bojiu nodded. Little Spade from Qin Mo's family. Bojiu didn't reply. Instead, she took a screenshot and sent it to Qin Mo. This isn't the Xiangnan I imagined. Qin Mo glanced at the photo, his voice faint. Most of the people in Xiangnan are still normal. There has to be an exception. In other words, Zhao Sampeng wasn't normal. The Almighty's venomous tongue was as sharp as ever. Bojiu tapped open the long message on WeChat. After listening to the pleasant male voice, she pondered for a moment before sending a video chat over. Qin Mo, who was wearing a hospital gown, raised his eyebrows and agreed. A fat cat playing happily with a ball of yarn suddenly appeared on the screen. Then the handsome face of the young man appeared. The princess seems to be very interested in things like balls of string. It is indeed the nature of cats. The chubby white cat seemed to have heard someone calling its name. It jumped over and saw its owner's face appear on the young man's phone. It immediately stretched out its neck and called out, Master, it's this fellow who uses me as a hand warmer every day. But don't worry, this fellow can't do anything to me for the time being, let alone shave my fur. I'm still the world's most handsome meow. Bojiu pressed down on the cat's paw to stop it from touching the phone. On the other end of the video call, Qin Mo looked at the man and the cat and said slowly, It seems like you guys are getting along well. Bojiu and Princess tilted their heads at the same time. Not bad. If it was a small fight every day and a big fight every 3 days, it would be a good way to get along. In that case, they could indeed be considered pretty good. Is the Almighty sure he's not being sarcastic? Bojiu glanced at the handsome man on the screen. Even though he was wearing a hospital gown, he was still mesmerizingly handsome. It seemed like the Almighty wanted to be taken home and raised. He decided to find a place to prop up his phone so that he could see it more clearly. What he didn't know was that when he moved, the phone's camera moved down and just happened to shine on the half of his calf that was exposed. Qin Mo's fingers paused, and his deep eyes darkened. He did not remind the young man to raise the camera. Instead, he just watched without shifting his gaze. Because even if he closed his eyes, that scene would still remain in his mind. White, smooth, and clean to the point that there was only fluff left. Very few boys would be like this. But it wasn't like there weren't any. Moreover, that guy was already late in puberty. He wasn't very tall either. Even that place was probably very clean. You still want to compare size with me? Qin Emo lifted the corner of his lips. He would give the youngster a chance to compete with him. Chapter 656. Alright, that's a good image. Bojio moved the chair, her legs apart as she watched the man in the hospital gown. Brother Emo, you are really handsome. Qin Emo wanted to say something. But just then a notification came from the Alliance chat. Lin Chuntao. F*CK. I just went to the Japanese server, and they're causing a ruckus. Who wants to join me? Wooly Tao Tao, you're being naughty again. Why aren't you training properly? Luo Luojiang sent a nail-blowing emoji. Lin Chuntao. The people on the Japanese server were just saying on the World Channel that all Chinese girls who play online games are either dinosaurs or fat chicks. Oh. Luo Luojiang had been smiling a second ago, but the next she sent a message. Tell me where he is, I'm going to destroy him. Lin Chuntao. Join the Japanese server, let's go together, their team is still around. Japanese server? You guys are playing together again. Count me in. Lin Feng popped up. Lin Chuntao sent a shoulder-slapping emoji. Look at me. I'm an assassin and so are you. We aren't compatible, you're yin who can go. Alright, wait, I'll bring Dehu over. Even if he couldn't go personally, he could watch from the side. We have the support, we're lacking a tank. Where's the tank? Hurry! Luo Luojiang shouted. This team is indeed arrogant, their results aren't bad, they haven't lost yet. Chunyi Guang. The tank isn't around, it's game over. His name is Qin Emo, Luo Luojiang replied. He can be a tank too. Lin Chuntao. Don't you have his WeChat? We've never chatted before. Besides, are you dumb? I confessed to him in the past, but he rejected me. Is it appropriate to speak to him alone? Luo Luojiang placed her hands on her hips. I have my pride. Lin Chuntao. That won't do. I can't find him. Little Spade probably knows how to use a tank too, Lin Feng said. Luo Luojiang replied immediately. If it's Little Spade, it doesn't matter how many times I get rejected. Leave the invitation to me. Lin Chuntao. You sound like you're taking advantage of the situation. Shut up, I'm going to invite my Little Spade. Luo Luojiang was in a good mood. However, there was one person whose mood couldn't be so beautiful. Qin Emo frowned as he looked at the chat history. My Little Spade? It seemed like he had really underestimated someone's ability to seduce. Luo Luojiang was a straightforward girl. Under normal circumstances, a girl who was good at gaming would be decisive in her actions. Little Spade, aren't you bored after a day of rest? We're opening the Black Japanese server, and we're lacking a tank. Can you play as a tank? Bojio didn't have time to look at the group chat. When she saw this sentence, she typed the sentence beautifully. I can play. Which server is it on the Japanese server? I'm going in. As expected, this youth was different from the others. Luo Luojiang glanced at the empty chat, the corners of her lips lifting. This was how gaming should be. Thus, after 2 or 3 sentences, a team that could not possibly be connected was formed. All 5 of them were in different teams, but they were close to the strongest team in the country. Every single one of them was a god in the eyes of the fangirls. If the fans were to find out, they would definitely go crazy. But the managers were different. They would definitely be scratching their heads if they found out. As if the National League wasn't stressful enough, they had to add a meal? But they had to consider the upcoming competition. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.